Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the City Council meeting for March 17th, 2008 to order. First thing, as always, is the roll call and determination of a quorum. Jackie, please.
LaCroix.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Adcock. Here. Hurlbut.
Here.
Okrepke.
Here.
Chapman.
Here.
Reifenbach. Here. Olson. Kroger. Here. Quaker. You have a quorum.
Thank you, everyone. Next thing, as always, the invocation. If you would please rise and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Leading today is Ron McLaughlin from Hillsview Evangelical Church here in Rapid City.
They represent the communities that they represent. And Father, I pray that as this night progresses, as the decisions are made, as the direction is given, that in some way that they would be glorifying to you. And we do so and ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. This time, we do need to go through and adopt the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? I do have an item 60A, which is a report on the Paps Cabin. Any additional? Please turn your light on. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson. You didn't? Okay, let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd ask the council to take the bill list up after your executive session.
Very good. Bill list after the executive session. Let's go to Robert Ellis, Public Works Director.
Two items. I would ask that item 60-B be added to the agenda. That'll be the Canyon Lake Dam Repairs Advertising Authority. And I would also ask that item 39 be pulled from the Legal and Finance consent calendar and placed as item 60-C.
Okay, let's start with the first one. You want to add a, was it 60B or 60A is what it'd be?
60-B.
What's 60A?
I believe that was your item.
Nope, that's 68A.
Oh, excuse me. That would be 60A then.
60A, which will come right after, okay, that's dealing with Canyon Lake, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a 60A. And then we also, what was the other item, 39 you said?
Yes, pull item 39
Okay,
and place that as 60-B.
60-B. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and just move item number 39 until after item 60A. After 60A. Okay? Okay, let's go to Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
My item would be simply the, I have a scheduling conflict with the special public work, or special 2012 meeting that we've got on March 31st. It conflicts with the West Boulevard Neighborhood Association meeting. I don't know if it needs to be an agenda item or if we can just discuss whether that could be pushed back a half hour to allow me to attend.
Why don't we make that as 68B? That way we make sure we get it on the agenda. Very good. Anything else? Seeing none, Chair would look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Now we're on to awards and recognition. And let's see, Butch. I'm sorry. That is correct. We do need to approve the minutes first. Chair would look for a motion to approve the minutes of the March 3rd, 2008 City Council
So
meeting.
moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Well, it's that time of the month again where we're very honored in partnership with the Veterans Coordination Commission. We're pleased to present the March 2008 Veteran of the Month recognition to Irvin Butch Reed. Let me tell you just a little bit about Butch. Butch entered the United States Air Force in September 1959 after graduating from high school from Redwood Falls, Minnesota. He was assigned to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in the accounting and financing field, which he remained throughout his military career. Butch was stationed at various bases throughout the United States, Thailand, and Hawaii. He later became an instructor at Kaiser Air Force Base, teaching non-appropriated fund accounting and finance courses. I'm looking at Jim, he's impressed. We deal with this all the time. Butch retired from the Air Force at Ellsworth Air Force Base as Chief Master Sergeant in 1981. He received several outstanding awards and recognitions. Butch worked in the civilian sector after his retirement in the accounting and finance field and retired again in 2003. He graduated from the National College and received 2 additional Community College of Air Force degrees in accounting and hospital management. Butch is married to his high school sweetheart, Rita. They have 2 grown sons. Since retiring, they have enjoyed traveling and visiting with friends and relatives, but they chose Rapid City as their home. Butch is a life member of TRIA, served as a treasurer of Chapter 29 ever since it became chartered. He is a life member of the VFW, a life member of the Air Force Sergeants Association. Butch is actively involved in volunteering his time and his expertise in the accounting field as a troubleshooter for various military organizations. Butch, on behalf of a grateful community and nation, we'd like to thank you for your service, and as always, it is so important that we recognize our veterans for the sacrifices they've made. Thank you, Butch.
One of the smartest decisions Rita and I made happened about 1.5 years ago. We moved back to Rapid City. We've been gone for 15 years down in Colorado Springs, and so it was like a homecoming for us. We're both actively involved in the Retired Enlisted Association, and we couldn't be more proud of the people that we deal with on a daily basis and on a weekly basis and a monthly basis. It's such a wonderful organization, and we feel like we really are a part of it. Thank you.
Their camera.
I will tint in your tie as you leave.
I think that's what that is.
Thank you, everyone. We are now on to the general public comment period of our agenda. This is the time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at tonight's meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by the unanimous vote of the council members present. Just a reminder, if you do wish to speak to any item, we do have speaker request forms. They're actually over here next to the press table. And if you could fill that out, including the agenda item, and turn it into Jackie, that way when your item comes up, we'll make sure that we recognize you. We do have a speaker request form from a Chuck Henrig. Is that correct? Okay. Chuck, if you could come up, identify yourself. And just a reminder for everybody, during this period, we do have a 3-minute time limit.
Hi, my name is Chuck Henry, Council, Deb, Mayor. I bring you a challenge to you today. As you consider expanding rapid transit to help make your decision, ride with rapid transit for a day and talk to those people that ride it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just a reminder, and I'm not sure exactly, but I'll look at Robert. I think sometime in the coming week or two, we do have an open house for RTA. Is that correct? Robert, do you happen to know the date?
I believe that might be tomorrow, actually.
Is that tomorrow?
An open house tomorrow.
Very good.
And there's two open houses, one in
Early afternoon, then a couple hours later, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that is right. Noon to 2 o'clock, and then again in the afternoon.
Very good. Any additional speaker requests for the general public comment period? Seeing none, we will move on. This is the non-public hearing items 3 through 71. Chair would look for a motion to open the public comment for items 3 through 49, please.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. We are on to our public comment period. We do have a speaker request form for item number 23 from Commissioner Gail Holbrook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Gail Holbrook, County Commissioner. I'm reading through this resolution and very pleased with the resolution. And I would ask your attorney to read this so the general public can know and understand what's in there. I have a couple other comments after he's finished with that, and then I think I'll meet my 3-minute
Very good.
limit.
Let's turn to Jason Green, our city attorney. If you could read that into the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and for the council, this is a hard copy that's on the dais. It's a resolution. Whereas the abuse of alcohol causes the city of Rapid City to expend considerable sums of tax dollars to provide a variety of services, including participating in the county's detoxification program, as well as significant law enforcement and jail expenses. And whereas the city of Rapid City recognizes that the abuse of alcohol can have a significant adverse impact on citizens, families, and the city as a whole. And whereas the South Dakota legislature has not enacted a funding mechanism to support local government efforts to treat alcohol abuse, leaving only the general funds of cities and counties to support alcohol treatment programs. And whereas the city of Rapid City supports the effort of the Pennington County Commission and others to place an initiated measure on the general election ballot to impose a 10-cent per drink tax, the proceeds of which will be used to defray the expenses associated with alcohol abuse incurred by various units of local government, including municipalities. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rapid City Common Council that the city of Rapid City supports the efforts to place the 10-cent per drink tax on the general election ballot by initiated measure.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Commissioner Holbrook, the floor is yours again, sir.
Just a couple of comments, Mr. Mayor. One, whereas as it relates to the South Dakota legislators, and it's true, this proposal has not done well with the South Dakota legislators. And the alcohol industry is not happy with this, our effort. However, anyone that knows anything about Pierre or has been there during the legislative session knows very well that the alcohol industry is powerful, very powerful. So once you butt up against those people, you got your work cut out for you. And it's true. They've never, one time it got out of committee. And so the other alternative for us is to circulate a petition and get it on the ballot. Enough for that subject. The other subject, as it relates to the resolution, speaking of the cost that alcohol related problems causes the city and the county. And I'll just give you two examples. The sheriff's office and all the related departments under the sheriff's office. And I've asked people to make a guess at this, and they've never come close. But just a wild guess, and they've never come close. It cost the county $30 million a year to run the sheriff's office and his related departments under that. Where does that money come from? It comes out of our property tax. That's where it comes from. Speaking again about the cost of of alcohol-related problems. Tomorrow morning, I'm sure that the county commissioners will approve a contract to finish the 2 floors in the county jail that are not finished. That's going to cost us taxpayers $5.5 million just to finish that. That doesn't include the fixtures that go along with it or the personnel that it takes to run it. Again, that comes out of our property tax. This resolution in support of our effort to get this on the ballot will be very helpful. And again, as I see it, that's the only way it's going to get on the ballot. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Let's see, before we go too far, Commissioner, we do have a light on from Alderman Tom Johnson.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the petition, and I don't normally talk during public comment time, but I just wanted to take a moment to thank Gail for his service to the community. A long time ago, when I was a new alderman on the dais here, Gail was a city councilman as well, and he served with great distinction, and I learned an awful lot from Gail, and I just want to thank you for your service, and it's nice to see you still going strong.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Gail.
Appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Alderman Johnson. We do also have a light on from Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I too want to thank Mr. Holbrook. I'm happy to be able to help the county out here, and I take this as just one additional piece of cooperating better between the city and county, and I think you've been an ambassador for that, and I just wanted to give you that comment. I hope this really helps out, and I think it will.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Okay.
Let's see, we also have a light on from Alderman LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I too support the measure on the resolution, Gail. From working at Detox for nine years, I know the problems that we have in our community from the people that come in and out, and I know the city's part on that. When we share that is right around 600,000, I think. And so I think we do need to step it up and get some help out there with that tax.
Before I came up, Lloyd, I did visit with the people at Detox, and they have some great programs that they're not able to bring forward because of funding, and they're anxious to have this happen. And so, with this resolution, that will help.
Yes.
And thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do not see any other, let's see, we also have a light on from Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a question on this item, but I'll wait until it comes up. Okay.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. We are on to the consent calendar. Let's see, we're looking for, Chair to look for a motion to close the public comment period, please.
So moved.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to close public comment on items 3 through 49. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. This time the chair would ask for any items 1 through 49 that you'd like to have removed from the consent calendar. I do see item 23 and 31 is what's been brought to my attention. Any additional? Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 4, if you would, please.
Item number 4. Very good. Any additional? Please turn on your light. Alderman Sam Quaker.
Item 25, please.
25. Very good. Any additional? Karen Olson.
Item 39.
Item 39. Okay, very good. Any additional? And additional items to be pulled from the consent calendar, items 1 through 49. So far we have 4, 23, 25, 31, 39. If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar items 1 through 49 with the exception of 4, 23, 25, 31, 39.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 4. And that would be Public Works. Lloyd, could you read that in, please?
Acknowledge, acknowledge the status report of well number 12. Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to acknowledge the status report on well number 12. Any discussion on that motion? Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we just have a brief update on well 12 for the council's benefit? Thank you.
Let's go to Robert Ellis, our Acting Public Works Director.
I apologize, I was out of the state the day that this item was talked. I can speak that there was a well that was being placed by the contractor down the well shaft. And the well, the casing that holds the well as it's being lowered did snap. It separated. The well did drop several hundred feet. Not nearly to the bottom of the well, but it went quite a ways down there. Right now, the contractor is investigating methods for pulling that well out of the shaft. That can be done. I believe that there are people coming to Rapid City that specialize in this type of work and will be retrieving that pump. We have ordered a new pump. We do not want to put that pump back in the well. So a new pump is also in transit coming from the manufacturer. Will be placed again down the shaft, hopefully with more success than the initial installation. But right now that is the status of the well, that it is being retrieved. The pump is being retrieved from the well and a new one will go down.
Mr. Ellis, please talk about any additional costs of the city, if any.
We're not looking at any additional costs for that. This is, in our opinion, a mistake that was created not at the fault of the city, but the contractor or the contractor's vendor that supplied the shaft and the pump. So.
Okay, Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
Would you, by email, give us a time frame on the remaining components to get that well online, what they're expected today?
Mr. Ellis, can you do that?
Absolutely, I can do that.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else, Alderman Johnson? Now let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And this is for Robert Ellis as well. Do you have any, I know Tom asked for an email, but I'd just like to know if you could pass that out. What are some of the timelines here? You know, this was supposed to be done in last fall, and then they bumped it back to Christmas time, and then January, then March, and now it's...
I can speak that I believe the construction time frame for well 12 was, I don't believe it was this fall. I believe that it was about this time of the year. The Red Rock Reservoir may be the one that did have a time frame of completion around winter or fall of last year, but the well 12 booster, I believe, was tracking on schedule until this happened, so it has put a delay in.
Okay. Mr. Okrepke, you still have the floor, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll be looking forward to seeing what the timeline's on that. How is it as related, because well 12 is important to the Red Rock tank. How's that coming? When's that going to come online?
I believe that is online for late April or May, if I recall right.
So that's tracking what? So the first part of May then, is what you're saying?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. An important point that was brought out at Public Works the other day that I think is worth bringing up at this meeting as well is that this pump and well represent, once online, approximately 10% or more of the city's water supply. So this is a significant endeavor that the city is undertaking. I believe that, based on what we heard the other day, that this is all supposed to be completed by mid-May. And if there's any question as to that time frame, I'd like to then offer, perhaps somebody else can offer a motion to take this back to Public Works for a more complete time frame. But if, Robert, if you think that that there's some gray areas, whether it will be May or not, then I'll offer a motion that we get a more complete timeline at the next Public Works meeting.
Mr. Ellis, are you comfortable sending the timeline out via email?
I believe I can do
Okay.
that, yes.
Well, while we do this, let's go ahead and have the email sent out, and if there's any question by any of the aldermen, they certainly have the ability to place it on the Public Works agenda. Okay, Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor.
You know, I'm certainly not opposed to, to emails being sent out, but this is an important issue that I think the community is interested in. I'd prefer that we have an update publicly rather than in an email. So I'd like to offer a motion to to continue this item to the next Public Works meeting for a more complete time frame.
Second.
Okay, we have substitute motion to actually send this back to the next Public Works Committee. Any discussion on that motion? Mr. Ellis, you have your light on. Did you have anything else you needed to add?
No.
Okay, very good. Everyone clear on the motion? We're sending this back to the next Public Works. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Just one point of clarification. We did have item 39 pulled from the consent calendar. When we were adopting the agenda, we did move that until after 60A, so we will not be taking up item 39 until after item 60A. Is everyone clear on that? Okay, very good. Okay, we are on to item number 23, please, and that'd be Legal and Finance and Alderman Deb Hadcock.
23 is a request the City Attorney's Office to draft a resolution for support regarding the increase of wholesale liquor tax at approximately 10 cents a drink on the retail level. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Jason Green, our City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a request for clarification on the motion. Was the motion to approve directing my office to prepare the resolution, or is it for approval of the resolution as presented?
I haven't read the resolution, so I think a lot of us haven't, so maybe just to prepare the resolution.
Okay? Everyone clear on the motion on the floor? And that is per listed, which was to request the City Attorney's Office to draft a resolution. We did have a copy of tonight, but if you haven't had a chance to read it, maybe the appropriate thing to do is just take it back to the next Legal and Finance Committee. That may be the appropriate motion. Would that be your motion now? Yeah. And that's all right with the seconder? Is that all right with the seconder? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The motion on the floor is to take this item back to the next Legal and Finance Committee meeting. Discussion on that motion, and I see a number of lights. Please make sure we will hold the discussion only to the motion to take it back to Legal and Finance. That is the motion on the floor. With that, let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Noting that Commissioner Holbrook had left the meeting, I had a question that, now that it's being continued, can be answered perhaps as part of the continuation process as this comes back. But the city spends approximately $380,000 this year on supporting the detox program, and next year it will be approximately $410,000. So my question to the county commissioner would be, and I'm fitting this in under the continuation motion. The question the county commission will be is, are they willing to reduce their request for city subsidy if this ultimately passes?
Very good. I don't see Alderman or Commissioner Holbrook here, so I think that's probably the appropriate question to ask it at the Legal and Finance. Very good. Next, let's go to. I'm going to go to Karen Olson.
My question, Mr. Mayor, is from the discussion with Commissioner Holbrook when he was here at Legal and Finance, there was a time-sensitive element to this in which they were eager to get this information out before the deadline for filing the initiated measure. And I'd certainly ask Jason if he has any disagreement with that.
Let's go.
In which case, then, it would be...
Well, okay, let's go to Jason Green. Very simply, Jason, the question is this time sensitive for the commission?
My understanding was that it is time sensitive. I believe the petition deadline is in late March, meaning that this would not come back. If your continuation motion is approved, it won't come back until your first meeting in April.
Okay. So, Chair might make a suggestion. If it's your desire, you could offer a substitute motion to approve it tonight.
Well, then I would offer a substitute motion to approve it tonight.
Okay. We have a substitute motion and a second to approve as per the resolution distributed tonight. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to state that I know this was time sensitive, and I can certainly support the current motion on the floor. Thank you.
Very good. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad the substitute motion came around. I was going to do the same thing. I just wanted to hear some of the discussion. I know it is time sensitive. The county commissioners meet tomorrow, and I think it's. And we read off the resolution. I think we can move forward with this tonight. Thank you.
Very good. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that Alderman Hadcock's motion was appropriate. However, this resolution, the way that it's worded, simply asks the city to support the efforts to put this on a ballot for a full debate, and I'm all in favor of having that debate. And I do look forward to getting the answers regarding my question relating to the detox programs and other county programs that the city supports, and just want to find out if it's the plan of the Commissioners Association and our local commissioners to request less funding from municipalities as a result of this endeavor. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is substitute motion to approve the resolution as distributed this evening up on the dais. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We're on to item number 25. Deb, could you read that in, please?
25 is to approve the request from Rapid City Girls Junior Olympic SAA Softball Organization that the city waive any costs involved with using city portable bleachers at Pete Lean Field for the 2008 USA Olympic softball game to be played on July 15th, 2008, and to name the city of Rapid City as the additional insured. And I move approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I support this motion. The reason I pulled this off the calendar I'd like to ask about the status of the resolution, which I believe is related to this, to allow the bleachers to be loaned out without having to have council action every time. There was a special council meeting called a while back to loan the bleachers out to Chadron State, and I was just wondering the status of that resolution.
Let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. We were unable to find any council direction to prepare that resolution to change the current policy. I know there was discussion about it at the special council meeting. However, at the special council meeting, the only item on the agenda, as I recall, was authorizing the loan to Chadron State, and that was the only action that was taken. There was no discussion following up on that.
Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
I can bring that up later.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a point of clarification, I believe the reason why we had a special council meeting was because they were being loaned out of town. I think in town it's kind of a different category, but if we want to have more discussion about defining that resolution or clarifying it a little bit deeper, I mean, we surely can, but I think what brought that discussion to a special meeting was because of the out of town.
Very good. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. And the distinction of this request over others, which are nonprofit organizations, I believe, are that this is city property that this will be on. And I think on city property, and also the city has an umbrella policy, I think it's appropriate to make this exception. I know we've had a lot of discussion about loaning these out, but to me personally, I see that as the distinction. It is on city property, our crews will set it up, and our insurance will cover.
Just for clarification, part of the motion is to also name the city of Rapid City as an additional insured, so they would be covered by their insurance.
They will insure it.
That's very similar to what we do with the Festival of Lights, because there were some issues as far as covering under, but we are covered. But thank you for bringing that, Alderman Johnson.
And the reason why I brought this up is that we have had a lot of discussion regarding who can rent it, and if we do waive the fees, that's the distinction I believe that there is for other organizations that may come forward.
Thank you for your comments. Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a clarification on that last clause. It reads, and to name the city of Rapid City as an additional insured. I think what it should say is, and to require the city of Rapid City to be named as an additional insured on the appropriate policy.
Very good. Is that all right with the motion maker? Yeah. Okay, and the seconder? Okay, everyone clear in the motion. Motion is for approval, and with the change where it actually states, the last line says, and to require that the city of Rapid City be named as an additional insured. Everyone clear on that motion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We are on to item 31. Deb, could you please read that in?
31 is to authorize the expenditure of up to $28,000 for an engine replacement and to declare this as an emergency. And I move approval.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
I'd read the agenda earlier, and I think it's appropriate to have which engine we're talking about if we're declaring an emergency, so I think that needs to be clarified for the record.
Chief, could you fill us in a little bit, please?
It is engine 3. It's a engine that's up off of by the cement plant.
West Chicago.
West Chicago. And it's a first line, but it's also a backup. We staff the Quint there, but they also take the engine out when necessary.
I appreciate the clarification, however, I think that should be a part of the record.
Okay.
Part of the motion.
Is that all right with the motion maker? Yep. Okay, and the seconder?
Yep.
So just for clarification, we're identifying engine number 3.
Engine number 3.
And Chief, why don't you real quickly also comment the fact that we're not without an engine because we have the spare that we were loaning to Western Dakota Votech and we're using that, correct?
Yes, we're not without we're not without a pump. We brought the one that we loaned to Western Dakota Tech back, and it is on the front line in case we need it.
Very good. Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir. Good, thank you. Let's go to Jim Preston, our finance officer.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to point out that there are 2 quotes in the blue folder on the dais. They're marked item 31 in the upper right-hand corner. The motion maker, if you would include with declaring this emergency, that also the 2 quotes, the one from Sheehan Max Sales, noting that does not meet the horsepower requirements, and then the quote from Interstate in the amount of $27,597.
Is that all right with the motion maker? Yep. And the seconder?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Everyone clear on the motion? We have a motion to approve identifying this as engine number 3 for the on declaring an emergency, and read the amount one more time with Interstate. 23,000, 27,000.
$27,597.
Very good. Everyone clear on the motion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That does take us to the end of the consent calendar. Just a reminder, item number 39 will be heard immediately after 60A. So we are on to item number 50, and with that, the chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period for item 50 through 71.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are in the public comment period. We do have a speaker request form from a Terry Regals, item number 54. Mr. Regals, if you just identify yourself for the record, sir.
Good evening. My name is Terry Regals. I've never been known to be a bodacious speaker or an artist, but if you'll give me a moment, I'd like to draw you a picture. And this is the picture as it's drawn. Each one of you will find yourself saying, oh, I know that picture. I've seen it. I've been in it. It's probably one of the most important pictures that Rapid has ever seen. And let's turn the clock back a little bit. Remember some time ago, Ellsworth Air Force Base went on the hit list. A lot of things in town shut down. Permits probably went to an all-time low. Buildings, contractors came to a crawl. Then some leaders here in town, including the mayor, city council, other leaders. I don't want to leave anybody out, so I'm not going to try to pinpoint them all, but there's many I can't even begin to mention. They took an active role, and they got this community to get involved and to participate. You get in the picture? Getting to everyone to participate, and we saved Ellsworth Air Force Base. We got neighborhoods from every ward here in town, and they reacted. Every persons that are skilled, unskilled professionals from every level. Then we got off, the Ellsworth got approved, and we all celebrated, including everybody. Neighbors, they got together, they congratulated each other, and there was a lot of recognition passed around, and which was a very good thing. Contractors went back to work. Kitron, if you look at that, it's booming out there. It was very dull and bare prior to that. Since that point, what my point is, and this is my point for being here tonight, is that we have left the people that celebrated and really went out of their way to help us. The contractors and all them are moving on, but I don't want to see those people who really gave their all, the people in our neighborhoods, the people on any given street, at any given address here in Rapid. And my job gives me a luxury, my current job, because if I go for the council, I have to quit that job if I win. And I'm going to jump right off my topic, because it brings me to a very important point that if I run out of time, I do not want this missed. I've had a conversation with Mrs. Olson, and I can say that Ward 3 is in good hands right now. That made make my job awful tough trying to knock that out. And she deserves that recognition, because we had a long talk, and I came away and go, wow, tough. Some of the areas that the people voiced concerns was air quality. I'll be glad to discuss any one of these, and a lot of the culprit is the city itself. What we put on the streets for snow removal. Snow melts, we pay for that dirt, dust, and that chemicals for weeks after. You've all seen it, you've all breathed it. It's got to be fixed. This is a concern of the people. As I've driven 10,000 miles in this town through my job, talked to people behind the scenes, in the professional office, in the dentist, everywhere. I'm running out of time here, and I'm really sad. I've got a 2010 plan that I would
Mr.
like
Rego,
to...
hang on 1 second.
Yes.
Chair would look for a motion to yield additional time.
Second.
And how much time, an additional 3 minutes? Okay, very good.
I'll make it quick. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members. The air quality, I won't go in depth with that.
Hang on 1 second. Let's go to Alderman Johnson. He did call a point of order, so let's go to Alderman Johnson.
As a point of order, there was a motion and a second, so that requires a vote to put additional time.
Very good.
And I would like to speak to that motion. My opinion is, and I've always tried not to do the politicking from the dais and at the council meetings, I somewhat refrain from, if somebody's going to announce his candidacy or whatever, is to allow public time to talk about issues. I think there are those events. I don't want to discourage you from running, but I believe that we must be consistent with council people, non-council people. I wouldn't support this meeting as an open forum to run for council, and I wouldn't support that for anybody else on the dais here either. So I think that's an important distinction. You know, if we have this motion to afford additional time, I'll vote against it, and that's the reason why. I don't think that this is the place. This is a place to do the government's business and to act on items that are important for the community, not to bring forward our political platforms. Those are my comments.
Very good. There again, motion on the floor is to extend an additional 3 minutes, and just a reminder, this was put on the agenda as listed, which says city employee as candidate for city council by the Legal and Finance. So that's how it did get on the agenda. With that, Bob Hurlbut, if you could make sure we talk about the motion to continue for an additional 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Alderman Johnson, other than the fact that I don't know that the speaker has gotten to the actual issue yet. It appears from the agenda that the question is the propriety of a councilman running. So to the extent that is addressed, I will vote in favor of 3 more minutes.
You know, we're going to burn up 10 minutes to vote on this. Alderman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that when this was discussed at Legal and Finance, Mr. Regels was really asking, he wasn't speaking for clarification of his candidacy. He had a listing of things that he wanted to bring forward on the agenda, which I think is slightly different than what we're discussing, because he and I actually talked about this as well.
Very good. Seeing no additional lights. Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just based on what Karen just said, so is this not about a potential candidate and asking clarification for what that might mean in terms of employment, or I'm a little confused what the topic is now then?
Is that a question for Mr. Regels? Mr.
Yes.
Regels, if you could, just very simply, the additional 3 minutes, is that to discuss the issue as far as your candidacy for city council, or is it a different issue?
It is an opportunity to discuss and share with what people have shared with me, what their priorities are, and so that they're not left out. It's the voice of the people. And the two other items are, deals with downtown revitalization and water, which can be a crisis, and 2010 plan.
Very good. Everyone clear on the motion? Alderman Chapman, you still have the floor, sir. Motion on the floor is to allow an additional 3 minutes. Seeing no additional lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Johnson,
No.
Adcock, Hurlbut,
No.
McCrepke,
Aye.
Chapman,
No.
Reifenbach, Olson, Kroger, Quaker,
Aye.
Motion carries. Looks like 7 to 3.
that's correct.
Okay. You want to set the time for an additional 3 minutes? Mr. Agel, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I'll keep it under that 3 minutes. Downtown revitalization, I want to make it quick. We've got a trolley system here in town. It belongs downtown. You take Wall Drug out of Wall, South Dakota, those businesses downtown are going to scream and shoot you because you're taking away the traffic and everything. Give that consideration for downtown revitalization regardless of what you do. That's a short version of what I had to say. The trolley needs to go downtown. Businesses can advertise on the back of the tickets. They can get discounts or whatever to get that traffic flow downtown. That's where it belongs. Water crisis. It needs a council that's proactive, not reactive. It flows into my 2010 plan. 2010 plan, real quick, and I would love an opportunity to discuss it with anybody because I'm going to run out of time here. I would love to be invited to share this proposal with you. It is my proposal, and it has to do with paying your garbage and sewer bill up front in a 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan. It does not belong to you. It does not belong to anybody. It belongs to the address for which that program is purchased for. It can be transferred to a new owner, new buyer, whatever be the case. And it saves, if you participate in the program, there are rewards and benefits for each additional 5 years that you buy into the program. That's a very, very short version, and I respect the council and the mayor's extra time. I thank you very much, and I want to reiterate one last time, Ward 3, I think, is sitting in pretty good, darn good hands right now. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Regels. We also have a speaker request form on item 60. Alderman Hurlbut, you have a comment.
Yeah, I just want to comment to Mr. Raggles that my vote no was simply because I think this is the improper place in the agenda for that. I would remind you that if you have future concerns, the general public comment at the beginning of the meeting is always available.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, let's go to Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mayor. I was trying to reserve comment here, but in the spirit of open government, I voted yes to allow Mr. Regel 3 minutes of time. I don't think it hurt anybody for us to sit and listen to a concerned citizen for 3 minutes, so thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to allow one more light and then we're moving on. And I'm going to limit this, keep it to 30 seconds, please. Alderman Tom Johnson.
As long as everybody else commented. Yep. I believe in a spirit of fairness. We have people who have strong feelings regarding some issues. You know some of the folks in the audience. If you allow 3 minutes for one person, you should allow the additional 3 minutes for everybody. So my invite to the folks that are in the audience that come to speak tonight, if you ask for additional 3 minutes, I'm going to make that motion to grant you that time. You need to be consistent with how we do things. Thank you.
Very good. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for the latitude. As Bob said, my vote wasn't against you, Mr. Regels. It was against the process and the procedure that we as a council have set up. And I fully agree with Alderman Johnson that if someone else now comes and says, well, I'd like additional time to be able to speak to whatever I want to speak to, how do then we as a council say no? So that's why I voted no, because I believe in the process that we as a council have created. And I will give you a call to talk to you about your 2010 plan.
Thank you, everyone. We will move on. Item 60A, we do have a speaker request form from Elmer Humphrey at 928 Elk Creek Road. Mr. Humphrey.
My name is Elmer Humphrey. The reason I'm here is because I saw the notice in the paper that we were going to discuss the dam that is spurting water down the creek. My position on it is, I have to put it this way. I've been in water resources engineering for 26 years.
I was the superintendent of the Los Angeles Aqueduct Water and Reservoir Systems for 10 years, and I do consider that possibly I am more experienced than anybody else in the room at the moment. So what I have to say is that all I see on that structure is red flags. That dam is in the poorest shape that I've ever seen a dam. I know the dams can go out suddenly. There seems to be some sort of thought that, well, it's not going to happen, or it's okay, we'll monitor it. And I have seen major dams go out and stood there and watched them, and you don't have time to say anything, but there it goes. And as a policy in my dam engineering, if there was a dam in jeopardy, we drained it. We did not have a position where it was up to the emergency rescue or the Red Cross or the fire department. It was never a consideration. The consideration was that you remove the danger and fix the danger or whatever it is. I have absolutely no confidence that that dam will stay and that it'll be there in the morning or anything else. We got a problem there. It's a real problem, and my first suggestion would be replace it. It's not fixable. It's been being fixed for 30 years, and it's getting worse. And it's some of those things are exponential. There's no, I see no thing to register or record flow data or sediment data or anything that would show the condition of it. All I see is, I've read your report completely, and all I see is the fact that it's going downhill, and it will go down faster and faster. And we're talking about lives here, and there's the old saying is that water kills a lot of people every year, and we thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Humphrey. We also have a speaker request form on item number 70 from Bonnie Redden.
Excuse me, I'm trying to choke to death here for some reason, dry. My name is Bonnie Redden. I live up in Ward 4. I think it's a well-known fact how I feel about Cabela's. This is not a mystery. The idea that those people were supposed to apply with all rules, regulations, and ordinances, and now they are wanting to put up extra signage. Well, I got to tell you, just what we need around Rapid City is a bunch more flashing Lamar lights, especially out there along the highway. My suggestion would be that you absolutely tell them no, that they should follow the example of Walmart up in Spearfish. First time I went up to Spearfish after they built that big store, I thought, well, I'll go out there. I had trouble finding the store because it's backed up to the road, very quiet, blends in, and has a sign no bigger than the front of this thing. Little bitty sign says Walmart. If there hadn't been one of their trucks up to the loading dock, I would never have found the building. That's what I'd like to see happen out at Cabela's. I want it very small. I want it quiet and dark out there. And I got other places to be tonight. Can I make a general statement about all the variances that are on the thing? Or do I have to stay here and talk on each one of them?
Bonnie, can you keep it very short?
Yes.
Just a simple comment, please.
One sentence. Stop with all the variances. We have rules and they apply to everyone. Now, if I wanted something in front of my house, I would go down and find out what the variance was or what the rule was about the width of whatever, and I'd put that in. I wouldn't go whine into the city council about narrower, wider, whatever. We got rules. Let's hold these people to them. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Redden. With that, we don't have any further speaker request forms, so the chair would look for a motion to close the public comment on items 50 through 71?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to item 50, and that is an ordinance. Deb, could you read that in, please?
Number 50 is the first reading of ordinance number 5372, adding antique stores as a conditional uses in the neighborhood commercial zoning district by amending section 17-20030 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 51, please.
51 is the first reading of ordinance number 5375, an ordinance amending section 1706 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Bosch Engineering for Stony Creek Development for a rezoning from low-density residential district to office commercial district located at 5610, 5624, and 5712 Bent Drive, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Will there be a plan development designation along with this?
Let's go to Marcia Elkins, our Growth Management Director. Marcia.
This is the property down on Stony Creek, and yes, the proposal is for a comp plan amendment that would require a plan development for this office commercial zoning district.
Okay, Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir. That's it? Very good. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 52, please.
52 is the second reading of ordinance number 5371, repealing chapter 1.08 of the Rapid City Municipal Code relating to wards and precincts and adopting a new revised chapter .08 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify, oops, I'm sorry. Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a typo on the agenda. The last part of the ordinance, we are amending, and I'm sorry, we are adopting a new revised chapter 1.08, not .08. That's a fairly significant difference in our municipal code.
Very good. Is that all right with the motion maker? And the seconder? Very good. We have a motion and a second on the floor, as outlined by the City Attorney, adding the language where instead of on the very last line, instead of saying .08, it'd read 1.08 of the municipal code. Everyone clear on that motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 53, please.
53 is a request by Sonia Hogg for Rapid City to consider removing or otherwise compromising special assessments levied against tract AR2 of Ridge Park Estates, and I deny the request.
We have a motion and a second for denial. Any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Let's see. Jason, did you still have your light on for a reason? Okay, let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Just a brief explanation, please.
Let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A request was presented to me through one of the deputy state's attorneys at the behest of a county commissioner. My understanding is that Ms. Hogue bought the property at a tax deed sale, and there are significant assessments on the property. I think Mr. Preston may actually have a more detailed outline of what the assessments entail.
Would you, Alderman Quaker, would you like some more detail from Mr. Preston? Very good. Mr. Preston, City Finance Officer.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Green is correct. The assessments for improvements, I did send an email to the council. Essentially, the question was that brought up at Public Works what it was for, and it was for some street and utility extension projects on West St. Patrick Street. The share essentially on this was $37,895.72, and then with interest and penalty, it makes $64,991.16.
Very good. Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you.
Very good. Motion on the floor is for denial. Any further discussion? Alderman Tom Johnson.
Maybe you stated it and I didn't pick it up, but what were the special assessments again for? Back taxes, or was that for improvements made?
Improvements. Let's go back to Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. It's for improvements, a street and utility extension project on West St. Patrick Street.
Okay, Alderman Johnson, you still have the
Just
floor, sir.
one other comment. I think if there are some back taxes owed on this, the county as well could waive back taxes, I would assume. Thank you.
Very good. Motion on the floor is for denial. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 54, please.
Number 54 is city employee as candidate for city council Terry Regals, and I move to acknowledge the report.
We have a motion and a second to acknowledge. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 55, please.
55 is a request for $200,000 from 2012 fund to complete remodeling of the PET Ziegler building, and I refer to March 31st, 2012 meeting.
Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second to send this to the what day was that? March what?
31st.
March 31st, 2012 committee meeting. In discussion on that motion, just a reminder, we will be talking only about the discussion to send this to the 2012 committee. Let's go to Karen Olson.
At the committee level, we felt this was the appropriate action because we were actually changing how we were going to use 2012 funds, so the annual meeting seemed like the better place rather than at a single committee meeting. So I'm in support of the motion.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification, I know we had this building identified for 2012 funding. Are these additional funds than what we have identified to date? Is this an additional request?
Mr. Preston.
To answer that question, the staff had requested if the building cost us $2 million, which it did, we felt it was going to take $780,000. When I say we, mainly getting that from the engineers. They did make some changes, et cetera, to essentially the wash rack instead of having a standalone on the west side. And so it reduced that amount quite a bit, so we're just looking for $200,000, which was never identified or funded through the 2012 program. And so that's why we're taking it back to the 2012, or like to take it to the 2012 program.
So again, this is additionally over and above the umbrella of the total dollars that we have identified for this project and for any format.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Additional comments. Motion is to take this to the March 31st, 2012 committee meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 56, please.
56 is an event permit for Kirk Funeral Home for the senior movie day at the Elks, and I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is that approval with stipulations? Okay, and that's right with the seconder. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was brought to council without recommendation, I believe, to give me an opportunity to visit with Mr. Kirk to discuss how this proposal can be implemented. I'm comfortable with what Mr. Kirk is proposing, so my recommendation is for approval.
Okay. With stipulations or not? Okay, very good. Motion on the floor is for approval with stipulations. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regard to this particular issue, I think it's important for the Kirk Funeral Home. As I understand it, this project has been going on for a number of years. But as we move forward with our global look at parking throughout downtown, I wouldn't like Kirk Funeral Home to assume that this project would go forward ad infinitum because I think we are looking at making some changes to our parking and that could affect this event. So in my mind, they shouldn't just assume this would be something that would be done annually. In addition to that, I would also make note of the fact that I'd asked our Jason Green, our city attorney, if it was appropriate for an individual to pay the parking tickets of individuals who might sustain parking in an event such as this. And he had told me that wasn't illegal, which was helpful because there was a point in time in which I thought paying someone else's parking ticket was illegal. And since it's not, that would enter into any future discussions about the request for special event parking. Thank you very much. And I'll support the motion on the floor, but I don't intend to do so in future years.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is approval with stipulations. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 57, please.
57 is a resolution directing the city staff convert the current 10-hour parking meters along Apolda Drive or Apolda Street to 2 hours meetings, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one comment regarding this. It's important to note that, what's there now are meters that are generating revenue. I guess I'm okay with going to 2 hours if that's the request of all the businesses along there. But there's been discussion further downtown about the fact that 2 hours isn't enough time, and I'm wondering if it would be better, because this involves meters. That it would be better to have a longer time frame, because it simply saves people a trip to go feed the meter, and it's still generating revenue. So I'm not sure that going from 10 hours all the way to 2 in terms of metered parking makes sense, especially when other businesses and other people, particularly visitors, have expressed concern about not having enough time to do what they'd like to do downtown. So I don't know if there's different types of meters that can be ordered, but I'd sure like to look into a 3 or 4 or 5 hour meter rather than going all the way from 10 to 2.
Thank you. Let's go to Jason. Let's see, I'm going to go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Art. I was just getting a lesson on where Apolda Street is. I'm not sure where it's at. It's somewhere by Hooky Jack's. And
Right across the street.
The question I have, and at one point we had passed a resolution that sent all of the requests regarding downtown parking to the Downtown Parking Committee, so they could come by with a kind of a global idea on how this impacts not only the businesses out front, but the public, but also the funding that we have, which pays for snow removal, street cleaning, striping, and additional parking. Has this been in front of that committee, or am I all wet and wrong in thinking that the council passed that motion so we would not see these requests until we had a recommendation from that downtown parking committee? What is the status of that, if anyone knows? Thank you.
Let's see. I do not believe this has gone in front of the parking committee. Is that, anybody correct me if I'm wrong? It has not. Okay. Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
I guess I'll follow the crowd. I don't really know the issue very well. Obviously, somebody has researched it.
Okay. We do have a number of lights. I'm just going to remind everybody, if you're not ready to act upon this, we can basically continue this for another 2 weeks. Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't recall if this has been referred to the Downtown Parking Committee or not. I don't believe it has. There are others on the dais that may have a better idea about that than I. I just want to remind the committee that this came up at the request of 2 business owners in the area, Hooky Jack's, and the business is owned by Mr. Thurston across the street. And this is part of a deal that they struck to allow Hooky Jack's to open prior to 4 p.m. The meter cost on this is about $2,900. That's the most inexpensive meters that we can purchase to do this. The other thing that I would point out is that we still need an agreement for striping agreement on Mr. Thurston's parking lot and the city parking lot behind the Milo Barber building before this whole arrangement is in place.
Okay. Let's go to Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. I was about to agree with Sam that we should have this be a shorter or a longer duration than 2 hours, but less than 10. However, if this is an integral part of getting Hooky Jacks to be able to, and I see Jason Green nodding yes, then I have to support that, because I think it's been a shame that they have not been able to do lunch business for a long time. Thank you.
Okay, we have about 4 or 5 lights, and I'm just going to ask, if we're not ready to move on this, there's no sense in discussing this for the next half hour. So with that, I'm going to take a couple folks that have not spoken yet, and then we'll start going back. Let's go to Malcolm Chapman. Karen has spoken, yes. Not on this issue, you have not? Okay, let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had extensive conversation on this, and this is indeed, as Jason has indicated, an agreement we made between several businesses. And we've talked about this a number of times. I've certainly raised the issue. In terms of Sam's concern that it go to the parking committee, we all agreed during those discussions that we would make this decision as an interim decision, fully realizing that the parking committee, subcommittee, as it moves forward with its work, looking at the global approach to parking, would then have the opportunity to make whatever decisions seem most appropriate for those overall community decisions. And I have said several times that this is an interim solution, which I believe you've all agreed to in the interests of having this particular business open at this particular time. So I would urge that there's been ample discussion about this, and it sounds as though it's still dependent on the striping, but it certainly seems appropriate to approve this particular part of the, in terms of this arrangement and move forward. So I can support what's here because I feel it's been amply talked about, and I have said a number of times that when the global parking situation comes forward and a plan is approved, both of these parties understand that it may require some change at this particular site. And I should note that this site is between 6th and 7th Street on Apalda, adjacent to the south side of the bus terminal and the south side of the warehouse building. And that's what we're talking about. And if that jogs anyone's memory and serves as a help in moving the situation forward, I would urge my colleagues to vote in favor of the motion on the floor.
Very good. Let's go to Malcolm Chapman, who has not spoken yet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Karen. I think we have had ample conversation about this, and I think that it is that somehow tied to the global parking situation, and the two owners of the business understand that something might change in the future. But I would tie this issue also to the striping. If that's not done, then why are we approving this if it's tied to that? So somehow I would like to marry the two items up together. Let's get Mr. Thurston in front of us to say when the striping will be done. If the council as a whole would like to approve this, I think I'm comfortable with that, but then how do we come back and then get Mr. Thurston to do the striping? It seems like this is a logical step to get him to do that as well, but if the council's intent is to approve this, I'm comfortable with that too.
Thank you. Very good. Let's go. Alderman Ron Kroger has not had the opportunity to speak yet.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that we discussed last week at Legal and Finance, or a question that was asked, was who's going to pay for these meters? And I guess, Jason, my question to you would be, is I don't know what it costs for the 10-hour parking meters that are there today, but which one's going to produce us more revenue, the 2-hour or the 10-hour?
Jason?
I don't have a clue as to what the answer to that is. I'd defer to either the finance officer or the police chief. Might have a better idea on that.
Let's go to Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess as far as I know, we haven't done an analysis on that. My opinion would probably be the 2 hours would generate a little bit more revenue just based on possibility of more tickets and possibly meter would be charged more often and stuff. That's just an estimate, and I don't know if the police department has.
Mr. Kroger, you have the floor again, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess, this has been on the agenda for at least 2 months, and we've continued it, probably 3 months, as Malcolm just pointed out. But, I think I would probably like to continue this for another 2 weeks, and the reason I say that is I really probably don't have a problem with the city paying to change these meters if we're going to have an increased revenue to do that. But if it's going to be a loss to us, then maybe we want to try to do a partnership with the parties involved in this. So I'm going to make a substitute motion to continue this for 2 weeks.
Second.
We have a substitute motion to continue this item for 2 weeks. Any discussion on that motion? I will limit the discussion only to the continuation motion. There will be no leeway given. Please keep that in mind. Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. That was the question I was going to bring up. I do think we need to clarify that. And as we continue this, if we can maybe request that the property owners that benefit by this change, if maybe they actually pony up and pay for the meters, That would be helpful to me. You know, I'm supportive of the change if that occurs. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Johnson. Let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
You heard my long speech, but I'll support the motion to continue because clearly there's some misunderstanding about this.
Okay, one last time. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe it can be a friendly amendment to the motion that we also include in that discussion with the business owners, a discussion with Mr. Thurston about the striping.
Very good. Is that all right with the motion maker and the seconder? Okay, very good. Everyone clear on the motion? We're going to continue this to 2 weeks and ask the property owners to actually get in contact so we can talk about the striping. Seeing no further lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Item number 58, and Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. Request the Development of Appeals Board, Appeals and Review Board hear the request of Merlin Stromer to consider exception to allow access to a higher order street. And the DAR Board recommendations is for approval. I recommend for approval too.
Second. We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Alderman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly respect the view of the DAR Board, but I really disagree with their decision because I think they've failed to remember that that this is not only an engineering decision, this is also affecting a major entry into our community, and the possibility of a less than attractive zone adjacent to our airport, I think is something for all of us to consider very carefully. We're not going to have many times, we want the airport to put our best foot forward as people debark and leave the airport. We want what's on those corners to be the very best possible image of Rapid City that we can have. And this doesn't really fit in with some of the future land use discussions we've had, and as you know, the staff recommends this for denial, partly because of they believe that a second street is a better alternative. So I will be voting against this because I think we jeopardize really the effectiveness and the whole picture of our community that is created by entry at the airport. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. If we could ask Marcia to put a picture of this up, and I'm going to ask a few questions and then make a couple of remarks.
Okay, very good. Marcia?
I would love to do that. However, the file is not here, so I can't do that. If you'll recall, this property is the proposed location of the access is 1,000 feet east of Airport Road onto the north side of Highway 44.
Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
It's not helpful not having an overhead. I understand it, but I'm assuming that the other 5 that didn't serve on Public Works don't have the idea. Let me ask you about the recommendation from the DAR Board. Was that to make this a single access for this lot, or was this a joint access for that and the larger corner lot?
Marcia?
It was for it to be a shared approach as presented to the committee.
I visited with the applicants, and they probably have changed their view, especially with the DAR Board recommendation, but my opinion is that you have a fairly large parcel that's likely to be the corner lot, which really probably, in my opinion, should have direct access off of the lower ranking road. I believe that the best solution, and I do support direct access from 44, but I believe the best solution is not to have a joint access, but a single access, specifically to what I believe is the 14 or 17 acre lot there. You have that overhead now.
There we go.
Thank you, Bob.
If you would orient the council, please, to the map.
This would be Highway 44, Airport Road as it heads to the north and curves onto the airport property. This is the property in question. The common access point has been proposed here. And if I might, Mr. Chair, just a bit of latitude. After this was heard by the DAR Board, the related plat and subdivision variance request, we were requested to acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal of those requests. It left us kind of in a quandary because the exception was not withdrawn. It's our understanding that the applicant intends to buy the larger property so they don't go through the platting process, which would then remove the city's participation in the discussion about the approach permit. So I just need to make you aware of that. Your actions tonight may be mute when the issue is fully resolved here.
Thank you. Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
Based on the last comments, I think probably we're better off to just continue this for maybe a month or something and see if they bring something back in, and if they do, then act on it. Would you recommend 2 weeks or a month, Marcia?
Marcia?
I believe that the related plat and subdivision variance will be acted on by the Planning Commission on the 27th and will appropriately be back in front of you at your meeting on April 7th. So I would continue this item to the April 7th meeting.
That would be my substitute motion.
Okay, we have a motion and second to take this to the April 7th City Council meeting. Any discussion on the continuation motion, please? Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Now, is it going to go, does this want to come back to City Council, or you want to take it back to Public Works or Legal and Finance?
The motion was to take it to City Council on the 7th.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. Okay. Very good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, continuation motion to the 7th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We are on to item number 59.
Authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign a release of easement on lot 4, Red Rock subdivision, and this is located Bennington County, South Dakota, and motion be for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 60, please.
Item number 60 is an agreement for professional services for the Kenyon Lake Dam repairs. Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. We have a couple lights. Let's go to Robert Ellis, who will give us a brief, and maybe we can answer some of those questions. Mr. Ellis.
A synopsis of this agenda item you will find in your blue packets, the professional services agreement with HDR Engineering. This is simply for the repairs, the immediate repairs to the dam. This is not for the reconstruction of the dam. So I just want to reiterate that so that the council understands this is simply for the temporary repairs.
Yeah, and those repairs are for plugging the sinkholes. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, very good. With that, let's go to a couple of council lights. Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciated one of the people from the audience speaking on the canyon, on the lake today. Maybe we should consider whether we want to drain it or not. If it does fail, I certainly don't want to be the one calling anybody saying, why didn't, try to explain why we didn't drain the lake. I'm not suggesting that we make a motion on that and vote on it, but I'd certainly like the city staff to at least consider that portion and see if that's where we want to go.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have an interest in having HDR come to the council and explain to us what their findings were on the dam and the options for both short-term and long-term. I think we somehow short-circuited the cycle of not having HDR come to this council. So I would request, Mayor, unless you'd like me to put it in motion form, that you invite HDR back and have them present to us their proposals and also the alternatives that the council has in front of us.
Nope. Very good. I guess the chair's going to look to Alderman Johnson. Do you want to offer that for a motion, or you just want to request, you want to approve this tonight and ask them to come back and give us an update? What's your preference, sir?
I was going to leave it up to you, but having not said that, I guess we have a motion on the floor right now.
For
Can I just
approval.
ask to be recognized at the completion of this so I can make that motion?
Sure. Very good. We can do that. Let's go to Robert Ellis, our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have HDR, the HDR team here in the audience. There are two people from their local staff here that could probably answer a lot of your questions and would be a good forum if there are still some outstanding questions by the council.
That's pretty good service. How about, would you like to hear some comments? Alderman Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. As long as HDR is here, hopefully they brought some materials that they can share with the council this evening. And would you report to the council this evening your findings and also your immediate fix and your long-term recommendations and the options that the council can see. Appreciate that. Thank you.
And yes, we're putting you on the spot. I do believe that the council did get a copy of the HDR report about a week and a half ago. Is that correct? Did anyone up in the council not get a copy of that? Okay, I just want to make sure. With that, if you could there again, basically do a bullet point summary.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jody Page. I was the project manager for HDR on this report. I apologize I don't have an official presentation on the report, but I can give you kind of a synopsis or an overview and then answer any questions that you have. Basically, we were hired by the city in January to review the existing reports and information that was available on the dam, all the projects that have taken place on it from when it was constructed all the way up until recent times. We also did site visits and did a little more background information check on that. That's basically the scope of this report. It wasn't a totally in-depth investigation. We didn't do any geotechnical borings. This is an earth dam, which there's a lot of variables with that when you do that. And without doing an in-depth investigation, it leads you just to kind of some assumptions or kind of educated guesses on some of the issues that are going on. And that's basically what was summarized in the report, if you read that. And if you get through the report to kind of our recommendations, as the mayor was saying, we are short-term. We do recommend some short-term immediate repairs as we labeled them, and that's what we were talking about tonight. And that's basically the sinkholes or the seepage, obviously the noticeable seepage that's in the face of the spillway and below the spillway. That's an immediate concern. So we identified that should be attempted to be addressed immediately, and that's what the council is discussing tonight. As far as long-term options, then you get really into some multiple options as far as repair of the whole dam structure or replacement of the dam structure. And again, this study didn't go totally in depth into analyzing what would be more cost effective, what would be better to do. We basically said that should be investigated further because there is issues with the dam.
Let me see if I can recap. The immediate need was to actually deal with the sinkholes, and your recommendation as far as the structure itself was that we should address that. It's not emergency, but within the next year or two, I think is what your report reads. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's
okay.
What it says.
Very good. Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So my understanding is we're going to deal with the immediate problem of the sinkhole. Would you tell me how we're going to address that? And by addressing that, is that a short-term solution, or is this a long-term solution, and we don't have to look at the sinkholes again? That's my first question.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
The immediate project, what we talked about, is addressing the sinkholes or more overall the seepage that's occurring, the water that's basically going under and through the dam instead of over the dam. And yes, what we're looking at doing is placing some materials. If you read the report and saw the dye test that was performed, it very noticeably shows seepage through what we call, a weep hole or a seep hole through that. So we're going to place what we're looking at. We haven't identified the exact methods of how we're going to do that. That's included in this project on exactly what we're going to do and what's the best for the city to do. But to basically place a material, what we call a bentonite is like a clay material that stops water from seeping through that. Find the seep holes or may even blanket the entire area to stop that seepage from occurring. That's obviously not going to fix anything on the structure. It's not going to fix anything down below beneath the dam. So that's why it's considered a short-term repair. It doesn't really eliminate the long-term issues with the spillway.
Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
I think I'm getting more questions from the answers I'm getting than I am answers. My understanding is that you've looked at it, you've determined what we need to do short and long term. Basically, you haven't done a specific study on it. You need more information. We're hiring you tonight to do an interim fix, but you don't have the exact fix identified. And I'm not sure how we go forward and authorize a fix when HDR says they're not sure. You think it involves bentonite and some other things.
I think I can help. I've read this report. Basically, what it talks about is basically the immediate fix, and that is basically going out, identifying the sinkholes, placing larger material, larger rocks, followed by sand, followed by bentonite, in an attempt to, in essence, put a cork in the hole for right now. That would hopefully stop the piping underneath the entire structure. And that is the immediate, and that's what we're dealing with tonight. And that's the only thing that we're dealing with tonight is that issue. In addition to that, HDR's report says is you need to go out, you need to do additional testing, and the recommendation will probably come back, or at least the preliminary data shows that you either have to do a complete reconstruction or possibly replacing of the structure of the dam. And that they're saying needs to be, they're calling that more of a, I don't want to say short term, but basically within the next year or two maximum. Is that a fair analogy?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I hope that helped, Alderman Johnson.
I think it did a little bit. So again, this is going to be essentially a short-term fix for the sinkholes. As we do a drawdown, we will do additional work in that area for the sinkholes. And I think I understood the mayor to say this as well. We expect some point as a community and as our engineering and public works to come to us with some idea of what additional study we need to do the long-term fix. That we don't have that just yet.
That is correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of comments and questions. First of all, if I could just in maybe rephrase the report or kind of your presentation, is it safe to say that your interpretation is that the dam is, needs to be replaced? You're not ready to say that at this point that that needs to be replaced?
That's correct. Our report we actually talk a little bit more about permanent repairs or things that you could do to stop the seepage permanently, such as instead of just placing a bentonite material on the surface in the sinkhole, actually create a curtain or a wall of bentonite to stop that seepage from going underneath the dam. That's obviously a more expensive, more involved technique, and it probably would involve draining the lake totally in kind of a major construction, a major cost. So that we do talk about more of that. It might be in the better interest of the city to actually replace the structure. We can compare costs and look at that to see what would be better at that point.
Okay. And then also, are you recommending as a short-term option to drain the lake in the interest of public safety in that area of town?
That was not a recommendation in our report. What we talk about in our proposal is in the short-term repair is to actually drop the lake level a foot to 2 foot, just to stop the water from going over the spillway and make sure that will help with the permitting issues, to make sure any of the materials or the work that's being done in the lake does not get released down into the creek. So that's all we're looking at this point. That is not part of our recommendation at this time to drain the lake for any of those concerns.
Can I ask why the recommendation is not to drain the lake?
I guess
we heard the presentation earlier tonight, yes. And clearly we depend on the experts, and the gentleman that testified earlier clearly had some experience as well, and this obviously there's been issues in the past, and so my direct question to you is, if your recommendation is not to immediately drain the lake or significantly reduce the volume in the lake, then why not?
I think I know where Alderman Quaker is going. The recommendation was to actually, prior to the first step was actually to go out and plug the sinkhole. And if by plugging the sinkhole, it buys you basically time. I think the first step needs to be, and I think as per their recommendation, is to go out, do the short-term fix, which is basically applying the gravel, basically the larger rock, the gravel, and the bentonite to plug that sinkhole, which basically would buy us some time to go out and do the additional study. Also, by drawing the lake down by a foot or two, you're also taking pressure off the actual structure itself. And that's the reason why they want to take it down, and also the fact that if you take it down a foot or two, you don't have to worry so much about the sediment flowing over the top of the spillway. And I think there again, I'm going to recap what the HDR said in the report. Short term, they believe that we need to go out, fill the sinkhole, basically plug it, do that immediately, and they immediately go into design and additional testing, and that's exactly what the intent of the Public Works Department is is as soon as we take the first step as far as plugging that sinkhole, we will go out for additional studies. If the additional studies say that we need to take the lake down, that's fine, but that's not the recommendation coming from HDR. Did I recap it? Okay. Mr. Quaker, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Then my follow-up to that is relating to the process regarding the bid and the award of additional consulting services. And I realize that there's a strong public safety component to this, and I'm certainly not trying to slow anything down. I do want to mention my concern with having, and maybe this isn't the case, but it's my concern is that we're hiring a firm, nothing against your firm, but we're hiring a firm to do the initial study, and then it appears that we may be going down the path of a design build, and I'm not sure that that's the best interest of the taxpayers.
I'm going to go to Robert Ellis. I don't believe that's the case because I believe we're going to go out for RFPs on the rest of the project, but let's go to Robert Ellis.
That is correct. When we initially hired HDR to do the investigation of the dam, we didn't know that this was going to lead to further projects. We were just looking for a recommendation of what was needed. The report came back and said, you do have an immediate need. Well, we need to act immediately, and these people have an intimacy with that dam. They've just come off the report, doing the analysis. I thought it would be in the best interest of the public to keep moving forward. You'll see on the next agenda item is the advertising authority. Go ahead and get all the processes in place so that we can act as fast as possible. When we do the dam rebuild, the reconstruct, the big project, we will be going out for RFPs. We will advertise that. We will follow the normal procedure for selecting a consultant. I suspect that HDR will submit a proposal. I have been contacted by a number of other firms that are interested. So our intention will be to do the RFP selection process.
On both the rebuild and the design.
That is correct.
Very good.
Thank you.
Alderman Quaker, anything else?
No, sir.
Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question because I'm trying to identify the difference between a sinkhole and seepage. And I'm looking back, I too read this report, and I recall going back here and looking at 1985, Corps of Engineers inspection identifies seepage. This is in 1985. Corps of Engineers inspection identifies seepage and boils in stilling pools and voids between clay core and concrete crest structure. So I'm assuming that from the very beginning this dam was not built properly. I mean, for a dam to last 9 years, and then that's a comment. But the question would be is, can you tell me, you talk about a sinkhole and then you talk about seepage, and I mean, is it a hole that runs directly underneath and then goes underneath the dam and comes out? I mean, how would you fill that with bentonite and sand? I guess I'm not an engineer, but that one befuddles me.
Go ahead,
That would
please.
be something that would continue to.
Again, that is a good question, and to be honest, within the scope of this report, we didn't identify exactly what is there, and that's part of what this project is going to be. To spend a little more time, identify exactly what is there, and then fix it. Because the boils, what we talk about is basically an upstream hole that the water is going through. There may also be other seepage pathways. If you look in the report, we identify several different possibilities of seepage paths under the dam. So there may be multiple things going on. We can't promise we're going to fix everything with this initial repair, but we're going to take the best information that we have in the issues that have been identified and attempt to repair those.
So a sinkhole, in essence, to me, when I picture a sinkhole, I picture something that goes down, straight down, and it continues to go straight down no matter what you put in there. And a seepage, on your other hand, it says to me that it follows a path and enters here, exits here, and I guess I still don't understand which we're looking at.
And that's part of what the mayor was explaining, where we use different sizes of aggregates. So if that hole is identified as being large, you obviously can't dump some small grain soils like a sander in there. You put a little bit bigger of aggregate like a gravel or a rock in there. Once you start to plug that hole, then you can follow that with the bentonite and the clay material and actually seal it off. So that's what we identified, and that's what we talk about in the report as using for this repair.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's still, I say a sinkhole goes straight down, seepage goes, enters here, exits there.
Exactly. The sinkhole starts straight down, and then we assume that the waterway goes just because of the pressure, with the pressure of the lake in the water and the pressure of the lower lake level below the spillway, that once that water begins into that sinkhole, it pushes it down underneath the spillway and comes up, and that's where when we say seepage, that's the water seeping under and through the dam instead of over.
And you're saying that you've identified one or several?
The exact number has not been
Okay.
I actually identified at this time.
I'm still not sure if I can understand how the different size aggregate's gonna jam this hole. And okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Deb Hadcock.
I'm just looking at this as a short-term fix, and to me, it seems like you're just assuming everything you're telling us from your reports. You don't really know for sure. Best information you have, assumptions. Sounds like a guess to me. I mean, you have some of the information here, but it sounds like the seepage has been going on for about 30 years from this report. And all of a sudden now it's an emergency and we need to fix these right now. To me, it seems like by listening to the man that was here today, it seems more common sense to drain it and do it right the first time to pay for a quick fix to do it now. And maybe you have an answer to that?
Yes, our professional recommendation in the report was to move forward with this short-term repair and actually try to fix the seepage that is occurring. Obviously, draining the lake is an option that the city can choose to do, and remove the water behind the spillway. That's an option. But our professional opinion in the report says to move forward with the short-term repair, which we're discussing tonight, and then look at long-term options of replacing the structure.
Okay, but from just reading some of your report, it just seems like you said, it's a quick fix, and you're assuming that this would work. And to me, I don't know if we should do the quick fix. I think spend the money depending on how much money this is going to cost. And at this point, do you have any idea how much it's going to cost?
For the short-term or the long-term?
Short-term.
Our report estimates between $50,000 and $150,000.
Okay, and to me, it seems more spent in the big fix than it is to just plug a few holes that have been happening for about 30 years. So.
Yes, but the big project may take up to, depending on permitting and funding, might take longer. So that's why we did recommend the short-term repair as well as the long-term repair.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is I would start the long-term now and forget the quick fix. Because if it's going to take that long, then it's a good time to start today.
Anything else? Very good. Let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In looking at the report, you have a series of subtasks, which is on page 11 of the report. The first thing, the subtask task 2.1 is review the city's emergency response plan. And based on an informational session we had about a week ago, it sounded as though that part has taken place. So the next subtask is 2.2, formulate and implement a monitoring plan. Daily observation of the seepage and related conditions is recommended until some emergency measures can be performed. It is expected that such emergency measures would need to be delayed until winter and spring runoff conditions occur. If sudden increases of seepage should occur or movement displacement of the structure worsens, the condition needs to be assessed in a timely manner and emergency response made as appropriate. Then we move on to subtext task 2.3, sinkhole mitigation. And it seemed to me, and I guess that's the question I have, it appears to me that what we're discussing is subtask 2.3 in this discussion. And as a part of that, immediate repairs to fill and reduce the flow from the upstream sinkhole are recommended. Dye tests have indicated a direct connection from the sinkhole to the boil that is present downstream. Installation of the downstream filter appears to have simply redirected the leakage. Emergence, and it goes on and talks about that. Sir, when we are talking about tonight's discussion, essentially are we approaching what is subtask 2.3? Is that a correct assumption?
Go ahead, please.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Let's go to Robert Ellis. We're going to see if we can answer some of these questions. Go ahead, Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. There's been a lot of discussion tonight about draining the dam or not to drain the dam. And I will say the safest dam is a dam that doesn't exist. A dam, the day it's built, is inherently dangerous, simply because of the potential it has to cause downstream damage. So I think the council would need to weigh, this is a park that's the jewel of the city. Do you want to see this drained for a year or possibly longer while the design is done? The report says there is a danger of it collapsing. It's hard to say when or if or that will ever happen, but it is always a potential. We do have piping underneath the dam, which is a big concern. But you also have other competing factors. Again, this is a large tourist draw. It's something that the community uses very heavily in the summer. Also draining the lake. That lake acts as a giant sediment basin for all the upstream water, ash from past fires, from sediment, from dirt, the pollution coming from the fish hatchery. If you were to drain that lake, there is a lot of pollution that will go down Rapid Creek, and that's something that you have to weigh too. And also, how do you keep a dam drained when the summer and the spring weather approaches? You're going to have a lot of rain coming down there. I don't think you can put pumps in there big enough to manage the water that's going to come down when you get a large rain event. It would essentially be, you would do a purposeful breach of the dam. You would remove that spillway and just allow water to pass through there. And there's, that effort in and of itself is going to be difficult when you talk about you've got to manage that pollution too, because there is a lot of pollution and sediment at the bottom of that lake. And when I say pollution, I mean dirt. I'm not talking toxins, but sediment that will affect the downstream fish habitat. So this is a very difficult thing when you talk breaching the dam and draining it. It is not something that you just turn on a pump overnight and a couple days later it's empty. It's a massive effort, and there are a lot of other interested agencies that are going to have a lot of discussion about whether they would want you to do that or not. Game Fish and Parks, just to name one of the many other agencies that are going to have a concern with that. So we took the HDR report, which said, yeah, it is a potential that it could breach. We don't think that if you act fast and you do these emergency repairs, we believe that'll take care of the issue for the short term. And yes, you will have to spend money to do that, but I guarantee draining the dam is going to cost something too. It isn't just a matter of putting the pump in the lake and letting it drain out. You're going to have to control the sediment and everything else. So I just wanted to provide that information.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Alderman Bob Hurlbut, has not spoke yet.
I first have a question and then a comment. My question is, how many sinkholes do we have? And
I think it was identified 3 in the report.
I don't know if it specifically identifies 3, but from obviously from the dye testing, there's one in that main area. There could be others.
Okay.
That's my best answer.
My only comment here is that it seems pretty apparent that the council hasn't had a chance to really get their arms around this, and I don't see what the harm is in continuing this to allow us to do so. There's a lot of questions here. I think we'll ultimately approve something like this, but that's just my comment.
Okay. I'm just a reminder, the motion on the floor, we're not dealing with design. We're not talking about replacing the structure. What is on the agenda tonight is specifically to deal with the immediate recommendations, and that is to plug the sinkholes. That is the only thing on the agenda tonight. Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's clear the council is not ready to act tonight. I think that the immediate danger with the dam lies with the structure itself, the dam itself, not the sinkholes. So I don't believe that the sinkhole repair solves the issue and integrity of the dam. It solves the problem. As pointed out in the recommendations here, it says that the conditions began within the first decade the dam was constructed and have persisted despite attempts to correct the issues. That's referring to the sinkholes. So I'm not convinced that the best way to begin is to start with the sinkholes, which are not the most dangerous items. I believe that the council needs to have a discussion regarding a drawdown of that dam. If truly we believe we have a dangerous situation, that might be something that the council should consider. And again, I think this is a fairly large issue. The council, in my opinion, needs to talk this in much larger terms. I think we're attacking the most minor of issues, and that's the sinkholes. Again, if the integrity of the dam is at stake here, we're not addressing that. And if we spend $150,000 to do something that is not necessary to do immediately and right now, I think it's money that is wasted. Again, you don't attack the real problem, and that's the integrity of the structure itself on the dam. I'm not convinced that this is in the best interest of the community to do this right away. I'm just not convinced. I am going to make a substitute motion and ask to be recognized after my motion is made to continue this item to the next council meeting.
We have substitute motion, a second, continue this to the next council meeting. Alderman Johnson, if you could, I'm going to, there again, as we've been talking this for about half an hour, I'm going to keep the comments only to the continuation motion, and strictly to that, please. Alderman Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. In order for me as a council person to make a decision, I think I need more information, and I think you're going to need to bring your props to the council and show us why the sinkholes are the most important thing that the council needs to look at right now. I'll hold my additional comments as requested by the mayor for later, but you're going to have to convince me as a council person that we're taking the right action first. And I would also like to address, is the drawdown necessary? What are the pros and the cons of the drawdown? If we do a drawdown, then I don't believe we need to do the sinkhole. But these are all the things that I as a council person would like to hear from, and I think are important in this community. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't spoken yet, and I'll try to stick to the motion, but I probably need a little latitude. I appreciate the report that was done and how it came to the city and then went to our professional engineers to decipher that report, and then based upon the total weight of that report, short-term and long-term, then I believe there's been some recommendations made by our internal public works department, which has several PEs on staff as well, then making a recommendation to us to say, short-term policymakers, this is what we recommend that you need to do from our professional engineering staff. A part of that long-term solution seems to be, by reading the report and based on what I gather from our engineering department, is that the sinkholes are part of the integrity overall of what supports the dam and the long-term impacts of that. So I think that this is the first step. I think that we can approve the item that's on the agenda tonight, and maybe the council is struggling a little bit with thinking we can't have one discussion without having the larger discussion, but the item on our agenda tonight happens to deal with sinkholes. I'm comfortable in approving that tonight as a short-term remedy, and then at the same time having the larger discussion about should we drain it immediately, should we do other things. I don't think that the two have to be exclusive of each other. I think we can direct staff to have HDR do this work, since they've already done a great deal of work in the report, and then move forward with what should that long-term solution be. Should we drain the dam after that? Should we put the pipe in after that? Should we repair, replace, or what have you? So I'm comfortable tonight voting on the item that's on our agenda. I have read the report, had discussions with our professional staff, so I'm comfortable with that. I'd like to hear what the rest of the council has to say.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. Very briefly, I just thought of another compelling reason why this probably should be continued, and that is because there is so much interest among so many people in the community about what is done with this, that we need to have displays that can be broadcast on our city website so that we can get people's input on this and they won't feel blindsided. There are a lot of ramifications of either way we decide on this, and I would just add that to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Just question, Robert, do we not have the HDR report accessible on the web?
It is on the web.
Okay,
It
thank
has
you.
been linked to past agenda.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of comments. I'm in favor, actually, rather than continuing to amend the agreement to ask that drainage be further explored, and here's why. There's a couple of points that I want to draw out of this this report, and I think it's important that this be mentioned. On page 9, it says, given the dam's condition, predicting a time of failure under this scenario is virtually impossible. The dam is a high hazard dam with potential for loss of life should it fail. Under the, and I'm skipping a couple paragraphs down, it says also on page 9, under short-term immediate measures, perform a detailed breach analysis to determine the critical areas that may be affected by the combination of a high flow event with simultaneous spillway failure. An analysis of the effects of sidewalk installation on the fuse plug should also be evaluated. Then going further down to 2.3, Alderwoman Olson discussed the fact, and the consultant confirmed that it appears that we're headed down the path of subtask 2.3, which could ultimately include drainage of the dam. I do not want to be in a position of at some point trying to Monday morning quarterback the decision that this council has made based on a report that contains enough red flags in it that if we have a breach and we have loss of life, there's going to be some serious questions that need to be answered. So what I'm asking is that we proceed with the agreement for professional services and amend it to include information on what needs to be done in order to affect the drainage of the lake. And so I believe that there's room for a second substitute motion. I'm going to offer a second substitute motion to approve the agreement for professional services with the original information and with the amendment of including drainage of the lake in the exploration.
Okay. I'm going to go to Jason Green just for clarification, make sure that motion's in order. Because at least the majority of that motion is actually the original motion. So Jason, help me out here.
I believe that's correct, Mayor. The motion is substantially same as the original motion. It would be with the additional item that the alderman presented, which is really properly presented as an amendment to the original motion. So to get to where Alderman Quaker has suggested the council go, the appropriate action will be to defeat the substitute motion, then offer a motion to amend the original motion.
Okay, very good. So the chair is going to rule that it is the same motion, and if the motion on the substitute motion on the floor to continue fails, you can amend it. Okay, go right ahead.
Mayor, I don't mean to be disrespectful here, but my motion is fundamentally different from the original motion in that we're talking about draining the dam rather than fixing the
Alderman
sinkholes.
Quaker,
And
my understanding your motion was to move forward, but ask them to look at it. I didn't believe your motion actually asked for draining of the lake. Was that the intent of your motion?
It includes it in the professional services agreement. Let's get the costs and let's get the information.
I'm going to step back here, and I think everybody's getting a little bit confused as far as how the process is working here. There is an immediate recommendation, and that is to deal with the sinkholes. Probably at your next Public Works meeting, you are going to see an additional item which will actually go out for RFPs to go out for additional tech work and also and design work of this facility. I think we're sort of meshing everything together here. Robert, is that a fair analogy of how we're trying to approach this?
Yes, the long-term fix, the rebuilding of the dam, will come forward in an RFP. However, I believe what I'm hearing is that the motion is to move forward with this agreement that is before you today for the short-term repairs, but to amend this to include looking at draining the lake or other immediate needs of the dam. I guess that's what I was hearing from the motion maker.
Let's go back to Jason Green. We're going to wrap this up. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. As I understand it, the original motion was to approve the agreement as presented.
Yes.
You've got a substitute motion to continue the item for 2 weeks.
Yes, and the second substitute to
The
approve.
second substitute that was offered, as I understand it, was to approve with the addition that you look at draining the lake and other alternatives. So the second substitute is substantially similar to the original motion and can be addressed if the substitute motion is defeated.
Okay, that's how we're going to head.
If I can clarify my motion then, Mayor.
Well, actually, your motion is
Well, I will
it's going to, unless you have a completely separate substitute motion, we're going to assume that we can amend it and we're going to rule it out of order. So unless I'm going to give you the latitude to explain here, but.
Okay. I guess if I can use an analogy, it's better to, I'm not calling Canyon Lake a swamp, but it's better to drain the swamp than wrestle alligators. And what we're doing here by doing the very first motion is we're wrestling alligators, and we're going after, and I will get to my point. I think that we need to drain the lake. So I'm going to, and again, this is based on the information that's been presented to us that there are enough red flags in this data that if we have a failure, we won't have plausible deniability, because the risk has been given to the council and presented publicly. So I'm going to offer a second substitute motion that we proceed with an agreement for professional services to drain the lake.
Okay, that would be an appropriate motion. That is substantially different from the first. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Motion.
Drain the lake.
Drain the lake.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, we have a second substitute motion to drain the lake. That is discussion on that motion. Jackie, clear the board. Clear everybody off the board. And we will hold the discussion only to that motion. Does everyone understand? So the only discussion that we're going to take up is the second substitute motion, which is to drain the lake. So let me clear the floor here. Okay. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Deb Hadcock.
Actually, I'm thinking that's probably a good idea after reading some of this. I'm going to read it. I know it's on draining the lake. It's also saying on note number 1, there have been noted seepage issues throughout the dam's lifetime, and several projects have been completed in attempts to control or stop these issues. Number 2, the Canyon Lake Dam in Rapid City has been experiencing seepage issues throughout the past 30 years since the dam has been rebuilt following 1972 flood. There have been multiple studies and projects completed on the dam in attempt to address these issues, with the latest being in 2006. Number 3, the long-lasting persistent existence of concentrated seepage is of concern. As indicated in the reference data, the conditions became a concern in the first decade after the dam was constructed and has been an ongoing area of repair and concern to date. The first seepage repair was performed in 1986, 10 years after the construction. Subsequent repairs were performed in 1996 and 2007. So if we've been doing all of this fixing and repairing, I guess, Robert, at this time, I'm ready to put the money in doing the real job. Because from reading this report, you've been fixing the seepage and the drain or the holes for a long time. It looks like we need the big repair now. So why do more quick fix when we probably should get on to the next step? Because from this report, I guess that's what I'm getting from it. Not that we should go in again and do a quick fix until 2010. We should probably start the process in what we need to do, what you're going to do with the RFPs. But maybe it's easier again to just fix it, the big picture.
Okay, thank you. Just for clarification, I know this document is difficult to follow at points, but the sinkholes are an issue. Whether we drain the lake now and fix them, or we plug them while the lake is full, this is part of the process. There's a number of different identified problems, and one of the major problems, the major problem that you're identifying, are the sinkholes. Even if we drain the lake, we still have to fix the sinkholes. Is that a fair analogy? Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Okay, let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
I think it's always interesting when you have a debate. I mean, I pay a lot of attention to people who are experts in the field. And the very fact of this report offers the most professional view of how something should be repaired. And for us to deviate from that in any kind of way suggests to me a less than taking advantage of your professional advice. I agree with Malcolm. This advice is coming from HDR, and in addition, it includes the advice of our staff. And I would say that engineers, of all the people I know, are the most cautious about building things. I mean, their tendency is always to overbuild and overdo because they understand the possibility of failure in whatever kind of project they're working on. So for us to suddenly, on this dais, make proposals, alternative proposals, when you're in the face of expert advice, seems to me a less than wise use of our resources. And so I understand Sam's concerns, and I even understand Deb's concerns, but I think our best professional advice from those who are very neutral in our community in the form of HDR, who've come and made recommendations based on their best understanding of what is happening with this dam. In addition, our own professional staff have made a set of procedures. They've set forth a set of subtexts. When you look at those tasks, in fact, draining does appear as part of it. And so I would just my advice and my feelings and my support will fall upon moving forward with the project as proposed, that would allow us to approve this professional services agreement, begin the suggested recommendations from HDR, and then pay attention to our city engineer, our public works director, Robert Ellis, in terms of following advice. I mean, in any of the activities I've done in the past, I mean, I know when you go to a lawyer, you take their best advice. And when you go to an engineer, you take their best advice. And I think it's folly for us not to take the best advice of those in our community who are making recommendations. So I won't support the motion on the floor if it is to immediately drain the, and that's my understanding of the motion, drain the lake. I think we should follow the procedure of those who have great professional advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. As I'm hearing the motion on the floor, it sounds like we're suggesting that we should drain it, then consider the ramifications of draining it. And if I'm understanding that right, then I think this is a very unwise undertaking. To use Sam's analogy, wrestling alligators versus draining the swamp, I don't know if we know which is more difficult yet. And so I think we need, and my final point is simple. I have 2 more points. 2 weeks is just not that much time. The odds of this thing failing in 2 weeks are astronomically, infinitesimally small. Meanwhile, I still want to be able to have it on display so that the public who don't go online but watch the council meetings can see what we're discussing. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Let's go to Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I think this has been a long discussion, and in some regards, I think we're off track. But I think it goes without having to say, but I'll say it anyway, that I think public safety is paramount. I mean, I think everyone is concerned with the safety of citizens in Rapid City. When it comes to safety as it relates to the issue that's before us, which is the dam, rather than trusting what I think or what I feel or what I don't know, I'm going to go with that of our professional engineers. Not just HDR who studied this and whatever level of study that was performed, but then that information came in-house to the city engineers, who then I would imagine had some discussion with HDR about questions and answers that engineers needed to talk about. And I looked at the recommendation that's before us tonight as coming from our city staff, who's also concerned with safety of citizens in our community. I support the path that was laid out before us of plugging the sinkholes, having further discussion, then taking out to for an RFP of looking at then how best to deal with the larger issue. I'm going to move aside just for a second to say, okay, let's assume that the motion that's on the floor to drain the lake passes. Our city engineer, acting public works director, has said then that creates a whole nother level of consequences, unintended consequences of relationships with other entities that we just don't have a clue about today without having some discussion on it. In addition to sediment and pollution, I mean, a whole host of issues that I don't think we even thought about up here, other than let's drain the lake. I think that's unwise of us to try to make this level of public policy. And the last time I checked resumes up here, I'm not sure if anyone up here is a professional engineer. I just think we're barking up the wrong tree. In addition to, And by no means am I saying that we should only do things based on the cost of something, but a part of the reality is, where does that money come from? I mean, how much does that cost to drain the lake and then to start the repair of the lake or of the dam? I mean, if we aren't having that level of discussion, if we're talking about draining the lake, I think, again, we're barking up the wrong tree. And I don't want it stated somehow that I'm saying that this is in comparison to what it's going to cost, but that's part of the reality that policy makers have to deal with as well. Public safety is paramount, but I think there's a whole host of issues that we haven't even begun to entertain yet that relates to this if we drain the lake. I would ask my colleagues to defeat the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor. I think, I can't support the motion on the floor either. When you start putting public safety first, I can support the original motion. I think the biggest problem that we have here, in my personal opinion, is this was brought to us through a news release instead of to Public Works or to Legal Finance, and I think that's what's given us the problems. We did down in Washington, the mayor gave a presentation to Thune, Herseth, and Johnson on some of the repairs of this dam to lobby them, and we did a good job at that, I believe. And so I think part of that is getting additional funding. So I think getting the sinkholes fixed first is the proper way to go. And so I'm in support of the original motion on the floor.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I seconded this motion, but I don't support it. It's kind of like shooting first and asking questions later. I do think that maybe drawdown of the lake is the right thing to do. However, I would like to have the opportunity to weigh the pros and the cons with the drawdown. And I don't think 2 weeks is too long. It may very well be the correct thing. Specifically, regarding the sinkholes, what specific risks do the sinkholes have as an immediate danger to this community?
Okay, I'm going to allow this very quickly because now we're off track again, and I'm not going to let the discussion get too far off track. Very quickly, what does the sinkholes and how do they create a hazard?
The main risks of the sinkholes, or the piping as we call it, is that if water is seeping or traveling underneath the dam, it has a possibility to take material, soil material with it. And as that happens, you're basically removing the material from beneath the spillway, beneath the dam, and weakening it.
Okay. Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
I would urge the council to defeat this motion and to pass the motion of continuation. And the reason why I say that, the reason why I asked this question, Mayor, was that I believe the issues of concern as laid out in Section E fully talk about the integrity of the dam and the loss of the reservoir and the danger if that reservoir goes. These sinkholes have been going for 30 years. I don't see there's an immediate danger. I believe we need to focus on, if we do put public safety paramount and in front, we have to talk about the integrity of the dam or the amount of water that that dam holds, which is not fixed by fixing sinkholes. And may very well go for an immediate drawdown. I'm not sure. But I would like to have the pros and the cons. And if we're going to do an immediate drawdown, I don't want to hire somebody to fix the sinkholes and then for much less money, if we just waited a little while, then fix them. If we do that down, I think we stand a good chance of throwing a lot of money to fix something that we could have just waited a little while to do anyway. We may very well draw this thing down. I don't believe this council has adequate time to understand fully this situation. And I think to ask the council to act on this doesn't make sense. I first started this discussion. Would you give me the alternatives? I don't think the council at this point fully understands the alternatives. That's what I want to do before I vote. That's what I want to do before I commit the dollars. And I believe Malcolm is right. Paramount is public safety. And again, I don't think that public safety is fixed by fixing a sinkhole that has been leaking for 30 years. It doesn't provide an immediate danger to the citizens. However, the dam may. If you convince me that we need to act tomorrow to draw that down, to remove that danger, I will do that. I just want to know what the ramifications are. And I believe Sam is correct. If the dam is the problem, we need to address that. And I'm fully behind him. I just think we need to find out, again, the alternatives first. And it isn't by fixing sinkholes when the danger is the dam itself. And I don't want to face my constituents tomorrow or in 15 weeks if the dam breaks and you tell me that there's a risk of that and I said I did nothing. Nothing but fix a sinkhole. Those are my comments. Thank you,
Thank
Mayor.
you. Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that this is an important decision that the council makes. I'm not a professional engineer. There's a lot of decisions that I make that I'm not a professional at. I want to make that clear, but on the same token, I think that I was given this information in maybe a week and a half ago to digest this thing, make a decision tonight. I think that if we limit discussion, I think we're not doing anybody any favors, process or whatever. I think that it's important to have a good discussion. I think the motion was made to drain the dam to spur the discussion. I don't think that there was a real intent that anybody would pass that, but I think limiting the discussion defeats the purpose of what we have at hand here, of making a decision that makes sense to a dam that's been at failure almost since the day it was built. I had one question in reference to if it is important to drain the dam or these sinkholes. If you plug the sinkholes and you have to draw down the dam to plug the sinkholes, if we draw down the dam, would that be less risk for the water to, if the dam did breach and break or whatever you had it, if we draw it down, would that eliminate some of the potential of loss of life? We're talking about loss of life and we're wanting to limit this conversation. I have a hard time with that. I don't know that plugging sinkholes, like I asked earlier how many sinkholes there are, you said you don't know. So we plugged the wrong sinkholes and the dam still breaches. I think there's some opportunity to maybe even I would entertain the opportunity to have another special council meeting to address this issue. I think this is one of the most important issues that I've made since I've been on the council since July. I think to limit the discussion for tonight's agenda is tough for me to swallow. I think that there is some things that we could do, but I need a further understanding. Like I mentioned, I'm not a professional engineer. I think at this time, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for a special council meeting.
You can't make a motion. We have two substitute. Okay. We have two substitute motions on the floor. There's no available room. I apologize.
Okay, and that's fine. I understand. I just think that this is important, and I think any effort to limit the discussion in an open manner or any kind of manner, to me, I think this is an important issue. I think anytime you consider the loss of life, that we have to really consider the time frame involved. And I know there's been seepage for 30 years. We're not sure how many sinkholes are in the dam, so we could plug 3 sinkholes here. There could be 4 at the beginning of the dam that would cause the dam to breach. I think our engineers, I mean, just from listening to the conversation, everybody is probably would understand that. So without being able to make a substitute motion, can I ask him a question about what causes a sinkhole?
Very quickly, please.
What causes a sinkhole? Obviously, there's more than one. I mean,
what would cause us, excuse me, what would cause a sinkhole is, as I talked before, it is an earthen dam. If you look at it, it's a concrete spillway, but underneath it, it's a clay earth material. Mm-hmm. If there's an area anywhere underneath the dam within the existing soils that there's a crack, if there's bedrock in the area with a crack in the bedrock, or an area of loose soil material under there where water can get through there, it'll get through there and it'll create this seep or this sinkhole that we're talking about.
In my understanding, that half of the dam is on bedrock and half of it's on clay.
Exactly.
So it sounds like we're having a problem that's going to exist whether we fill 10 sinkholes or 5 sinkholes or 20. So, and that's coming from a non-professional engineer, but I think that that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Alderman Deb Hadcock.
Can I ask Robert a question?
Yep. You can. Please make sure, if you could, try to keep it to the motion
Okay.
on the floor, if you could, please.
It's pretty simple. What made these specific sinkholes such an emergency, being that we've had them for the last 11 years? What made this specific that we had to do these ones right away?
Robert.
They appear to be getting larger, moving more water than they have historically, and it's to the point where there's enough water going through this sinkhole, and there are beginning to be a number of holes actually in the dam spillway itself that we've never had this much happening before in the past. It's
Okay.
to a new level.
So basically, these ones are just bigger. We don't know how many there are, and it's half of the lake is made out of this material.
I think we do know where the sinkhole is. I think it is in one specific area that we can address through this project. There may be 2 or 3 of them, but they're in the same area. Our plan would be to coat that entire area.
Okay, and
So-
you need to drain the lake or drain half the lake on this?
We're only looking at draining it 1 to 2 feet, and the reason for that is because you're putting in all these sediments, sand, rock, bentonite.
Okay.
We don't want that excess dirt going over the spillway dam and down the creek. We were gonna lower the level of the dam so that that sediment and pollution stayed in the dam. That's
Okay.
the reason for the drawdown.
Thank you.
You have anything else?
Nope.
Let's go to Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Alderman Whiffenbach suggested a compromise that I can't make the motion yet until this gets voted down. But I would urge my colleagues to vote this motion down and consider setting a special meeting for next week. We're only talking 1 week's delay, and continue this until that time. That way it can have a full discussion in full public view, dedicated specifically to this significant situation. So, after this vote, if the motion does not carry, I'll offer that.
Let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
Would it be appropriate to call the question?
Well, since you're the last light, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference.
A long time ago.
I call the question.
Well, if there's no other lights, we'll go ahead and vote on the question. Yeah, we can do that. I'm going to ask for any additional discussion. If not, we are going to go to the vote. The vote is a second substitute motion. Malcolm, did you want to?
I did.
Okay, then I'm going to go back to Karen. Karen, did you still want to call the question? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. The question has been called. We go to immediately to a vote on calling the question. All those in favor of calling the question signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The question has been called. We are back to the second substitute motion, which is to drain the lake. Is that correct? Okay. That is the question on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
No.
Let's see, how many, did we just have one no?
No, we had one eye.
One aye, I'm sorry, one aye from Alderman Sam Quaker, 9-1. Okay, that motion fails. We are back to the substitute motion, which was to continue, and Alderman Johnson, help me out, was it for 2 weeks? Was that the substitute motion?
Yeah.
Okay, for 2 weeks. Any discussion on that motion? Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. I would offer a second substitute motion to set a special council meeting as early as possible to discuss this with full presentation and discussion.
Give a date. Second.
Okay,
Second.
I think we do need a date specific, though.
I would suggest Monday if that works for everybody. I think we're off Monday.
March 24th?
A lot of people, I think, are going to be out of town because of the weekend.
We-
Easter weekend.
In 2 weeks.
Make it
Well, or next
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Okay, well, I mean, we could do it at just the next council meeting, but that would be essentially the previous
That's the same motion as Alderman Johnson, so that would be out of order.
Would Tuesday of next week work?
Is that your motion?
I'm asking for,
Well, just make your
I'll
motion.
make that my motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second substitute motion and a second to take this to a special council meeting on Tuesday. What is the date?
The
25th.
18th,
18th. Oh, wait,
tomorrow.
no, that's not. I meant the 25th.
Yeah, the 25th. Is that all right with the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. Motion on the floor is to take this item to a special council meeting on March 25th at 1 o'clock, I assume?
No.
What time?
Evening.
Evening? 7 o'clock. Okay, very good. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger, and there again, we will, since the motion is just setting a meeting, special council meeting, we will talk about that only, please. Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess if the time is 7 o'clock, I should be all right, so.
Okay. Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
I just want to make certain that our consultant or HDR will be available at that time as well. It won't do us any good to not have that meeting if they're not available.
Fair question. Would you be available on the 25th?
We'll make every attempt to have individuals here.
Okay, very good. Alderman Johnson, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Robert Ellis, please.
I would just would like to know what information we should be prepared to talk about at that meeting, so that HDR and myself and my staff can make efficient use of your time.
Let's go back to Alderman Hurlbut, who was the motion maker.
Thank you. That's kind of my question too, is I don't know all the information that we need. My biggest concern is the ramifications of draining this rather than fighting the alligators for a while until we do the full replacement anyway. Is my particular area of concern. I heard concerns about downstream contamination of Rapid Creek, just a whole slew of things. I want to know what the other options are and why we've weighed this one more heavily than those. And I have a feeling we're going to agree with the recommendation. I'm not comfortable voting on it tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Robert, you got enough direction there? Very good. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I could support the motion on the floor to have further discussion. I'm just wondering, will there be some conversation between council members and staff between now and then, or truly, what do we expect to change based on what we've talked about tonight in terms of recommendations from staff? I would see this meeting and staff would lay out the report and then say, these are our recommendations. I think we should fill the sinkholes first in a short-term scenario. Long-term, I think we need to replace the dam. I'm wondering, what else are we getting to there? And I guess I don't understand why there's a need to have another meeting, but if the council thinks that somehow this is better informing the public or having more information out there in the public domain, then by all means I support that. But I would like more direction to staff, or if Robert feels that he has enough information, I guess that's okay.
Let's go to Alderman Bill O'Krepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And as I'm listening to the dialogue, we've been talking about this for over an hour now. I'm glad we're going to continue this, or at least we're proposing to continue this so that we can have some further dialogue. I appreciate the consultants and the staff and the mayor to put their heads together and come up with a good plan to bring forward to us. But a wise man told me one time, many brains are better than one or two. I think that as a city council that has to figure out where money comes from and authorize the money to, at least share some of the thoughts on where we want to go and what we want to do. We may want to say, we just need to replace the dam. Just do it. And we don't have enough information to do that. I agree that the sinkholes are important. I think the sinkholes need to be fixed. But I don't think the staff and the mayor has really had a chance to get the policymakers to give us our input to go forward and see what we really want to do as a city council. Like I said, I'm glad that the mayor and the staff and you have brought forth some good ideas and some potentials. But is this where we want to go as a city? Is this where we want to go? Is this what we want to do? Maybe we want to, as a collective body, say, Mayor, find the money and make it happen. And if you can't, then we don't. But I tease the mayor a little bit here, bless his heart. But the staff works for him, and so I don't go to Jim Preston or I don't go to the other staff members to figure out where the monies are. I go to the mayor to do that. But we need to do that. We need some time to at least do some dialogue with the whole city council to bring all of our thoughts together and give us a chance to talk. I don't want to delay this because I think it's something that we need to do, but I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing, that we're spending the right money, going the right direction. And as us as a collective body should have an opportunity to make that decision and help the mayor with that decision. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that at the presentation we should receive, if possible, more specific information regarding the analysis and why the short-term solutions do not include drainage. And I'll tell you, there's 2 bullet points in the short-term immediate measures that I would like
Alderman Quaker. No,
talked about.
Sam, please. Just a reminder, we've held everybody else fairly closely to the continuation motion. If you could, if we're going to start getting into the technical issues, I think you're out of bounds there.
Well, I'm asking, Mayor,
please talk to the
I'm asking for
continuation
information to be brought forward to that meeting regarding these 2 bullet points, and
Okay.
it's important that I be.
Okay, please continue.
The 1 bullet point was to determine a detailed breach analysis. There was a breach once, and I'm not sure what the need is for another breach analysis, and the other is updating emergency response and evacuation plans, which probably should be done regardless. But again, I am trying to understand why drainage and replacement was put behind repairing the sinkholes when the sinkholes have been there for so long. I do not need an answer tonight. Next week is fine, but I'm just asking that we have a more complete presentation as to the risks, because when I read the report, it indicates that collapse is possible, but it doesn't say how serious of a risk it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson. There again, a reminder, let's go to Ron Reifenbach. The motion on the floor is to continue this to a special council meeting. I understand there's many questions, but the intent of the motion is to create a forum to actually discuss those. So with that, Alderman Ron Reifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question was asked about the continuation of some more information that would be privy, and I think, to me, and forgive me if I missed this, but subtask 2.1 and subtask 2.2 are items that I would like to see at that. So, thank you.
Very good. Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I pushed the wrong button. I was going to speak and I pushed the cancel. I appreciate you recognizing me now. Malcolm did ask the question, what will be different at the meeting? And I agree with Sam. I need to have the information available, and hopefully the staff or the consultant will have. I want specifically the pros and cons on drawing that lake down. I want to have an analysis of what is the danger identified with, the sinkholes or the dam. And I'd like to have some kind of an elevated schedule as to which provides the most danger. And I would like to have, and maybe you can give it to us prior to in advance, specifically regarding the sinkholes, since we're talking about this, what specific and immediate danger those sinkholes provide. That will help me in the decision process. Thank you for asking the question, Malcolm. That's what I'll be looking for, and hopefully we'll get a resolve at that point.
Very good. Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Hurlbut. And again, just a reminder, motion on the floor is continue this to the it might as well be December, the way we're going. March 25th, March 25th at 7 o'clock. Alderman Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. My only question is, should this motion, I'll offer an amendment to this motion to include items 60A, B, and C. I think that'll dispose of all 3 at once. If that's not out of order, I think it's just a matter of.
That's a good idea.
I think they're all 3 related.
You know what? We're getting awful complicated. We're going to vote for the motion on the floor first, and then Alderman Hurlbut, you're certainly welcome to make that on the follow-ups. I just hate to get into a discussion because now we're amending a motion. We've been around this. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comments will be brief. I don't have a problem at all with the council having more discussion and taking this to some special meeting to have more discussion. Again, I'm comfortable with the decisions and the recommendations made by professional engineers, but I see you trying to gavel me.
No.
Let me put that over there. I will say, I mean, there have been a couple comments I just think need some clarification. I think a lot of work has been done in this community since the '72 flood to make sure that pathway where water would run in our community is relatively free. I think a lot of work and a lot of effort have gone into that, so I don't want anyone to get the impression that safety is still not paramount. One other thing, I'll just make a quick comment. Sam mentioned about emergency management plans being updated and all those. Those things have been done. Those things have been done. Emergency management has been a part of this discussion. The plans have been updated. I believe we have new copies of them. That work has been done.
Very good. Thank you. Motion on the floor is to take this to a special council meeting on March 25th at 7 p.m. Seeing no further lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Did I hear a no? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We are on to item 60A. And let's see, Lloyd, could you read that in, please? That's
Let's go back to
advertising authority.
39, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
That's actually taken up. item number-
60A, if I'm not mistaken, which is advertising authority for $250,000, which is basically the advertising authority for item 60.
Thank you.
What's that?
So thank you. I don't
Okay.
have that on.
Yes.
Motion would be to continue that.
To the special council meeting, is that correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? Motion is to take this item to the special council meeting on the 25th at 7 p.m. There again, this is continuation motion. Let's please keep the conversation to that. Alderman Bob Hurlbut. You're good? Okay. Let's go to Robert Ellis.
I apologize, I have nothing more to add.
Geez, okay, we're on a roll. Okay, Alderman Tom Johnson.
Can we, by email, as soon as we can, have the item that we're continuing, other than adding 60 A and B? I'm not really sure. Or is it on the dais in front of me?
I believe it's in your blue packet.
60A should be the advertising authority for the Canyon Lake Dam repairs.
That's on the dais here?
Yes, it should be in your blue packet.
Is there an explanation as to what work they're going to do is attached as well? If there is, then I'm satisfied. Okay.
There is not. This was to complement the design that HDR was going to do for the dam. However, with that being continued to the 25th, there's no need to act on this tonight.
Mayor, if I can ask for a narrative which tells me what these numbers mean before the meeting. Thank you.
Robert, can you get that mailed out? Basically, just a narrative of what is included in that.
Yes, we can do that.
We'll get that done, Alderman Johnson. Hey, Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor? Anything else? Very good. Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is to continue item 60A to the March 25th special council meeting at 7 p.m. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're back to item 39, please. Item 39.
It's to authorize the staff to negotiate professional service agreement for design of the third level of the 6th Street parking ramp structure. Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Tom Johnson.
I was out of town for a couple of days there, but I'm trying to figure out where did this all of a sudden hit the radar screen? I know that we had a discussion regarding 2012 about a parking structure downtown that I believe we were going towards the Rushmont. And I'm not sure where this particular one came in or where the funding is assigned that we'll be able to afford to put that third structure on, unless we're now saying no to the Rushmont. So I would like to know where this comes from. One thing I don't want to do, and we've talked about this for a number of years, and as far as I know, we don't have the money to do it. I don't want to put together another plan and have a cost to the taxpayers for something that we don't have an immediate plan to fix. And maybe I've been out of the room too much, but I don't recall having this discussion regarding putting this third level on before we run out and get the thing. Is there a discussion there that has happened at the council meeting? Yes. If somebody would fill me in on what that is, I would appreciate it.
Very good. Just a real recap, I believe about 45 days ago, we started discussing this, I believe, both at Legal and Finance and City Council. The staff has come back, and the council has already approved to go out to bond for this. And matter of fact, I think Mr. Preston is just about ready to come back and talk about the bonding. But to answer your question, Alderman Johnson, we have talked about this at least, I believe, twice at City Council meetings. So, anything else?
This might not be the motion. How has the funding come to this? Does it come through 2012 or does it come through the existing parking fees?
It would come through a bonding, which would be paid back through the PLA fund.
Okay, I'll make one remark. It's pretty much to this. During some of the meetings we had at DC, one of the red flags that immediately went up and that I was going to discuss was that they had a person that did bonding tell us that the cost of bonding, and the bonding is almost in the toilet. Now, I don't know if that's correct in our area or not, but they threw up a huge red flag of the bonding is more expensive. And I don't know how that relates to this or other things that we do, but at some point we need to have a serious discussion. I know that Alderman LaCroix was at the same meeting I was at, that they talked about bonding and how it was not as good as it has been in the past for municipalities. And they actually suggested if you wouldn't bond now if you could afford to wait. Now, I don't know how the rates are coming in, and maybe we don't have that information yet, but it was a huge red flag. And we sat through an hour and a half of talking about finance and bonding. And I know Alderman LaCroix is shaking his head over here. So I don't know if we have any information regarding that, but that's a concern as well. Thank you.
Did you want to ask Mr. Preston for just a 45-minute
45
recap?
minutes?
45 seconds?
Okay, I can't talk for 45
Just talk about bonding and what you found out through the RFPs that we've gone out for bonding.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quickly, council did not authorize us to go out for bond. Essentially what they did is authorize us to go out for proposals.
RFPs.
And we received 5 proposals. We're currently analyzing those. We've made a couple phone calls today, and we're going to continue that the rest of this week to take a look at them. And then we hope to come back during the next Legal and Finance with the bond resolution. So essentially that's it. We are not seeing where the costs are any more unusual, and actually we think the rates are pretty good.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one comment. The issue of pigeons has been a serious issue in the past in this particular ramp, and I don't know if we've been able to control that in the first level, but I've heard people are unwilling to park in the first level because of the pigeon issue, and I'm not sure if that's been addressed yet. I believe it was, that's still in the process of being looked at, but I hope that that's also part of the consideration here as we look at adding another level. Do we know?
I'm sorry.
Is that being seriously considered?
Yes, that it is. Okay, anything else? Motion on the floor was for approval, is that correct? Any further discussion? Any further discussions? Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. How is this going to potentially affect our other bondings that we have on the radar screen? The water, sewer, those kinds of things. I mean, we're looking at Jackson Springs. We're looking at $25 to $50 million to do that, and we're going to have to bond for that. And if we go out for these other bonds, how is that going to affect the potential for the future, in the near future?
Mr. President, just talk about the funding sources and.
It is different funding sources. The water would be different than from the parking, which would be different from the Civic Center. The only effect that bonds cumulatively may have, if we get over $10 million, then they're not bank qualified, and essentially the rates would be a little bit higher than what we could by staying under. But if you're going to do water that's, in my opinion, what I've heard is obviously going to be over $10 million, so
Okay.
it'd be a slight rate difference.
Okay. Alderman Krepke, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So, and the short answer is that it won't affect this. Okay, then I'm comfortable. Thank you.
Alderman Tom Johnson.
Just so I understand the process, this gives you the authority to negotiate an agreement. That agreement will come back to us, and at that time, you will have had the opportunity to review the bonding proposal, so we'll have those numbers eligible. We'll also have an analysis on the PL&A fund. Is that my understanding?
Let's go to Mr. Ellis. I believe that is correct.
I'm sorry, I missed that question. Could you please repeat that?
So my understanding is that this gives you the authority to negotiate the professional service agreement for the parking ramp. That will come back to us, and that will give, I'm assuming this is a question for the finance office as well, that'll give the finance office an opportunity to review the bonding, how it comes in as far as a percentage, and all of that will come back to us with an analysis of the PL&A fund, so we know what the bonding costs are and the ability to make that repayment. Is that correct? Is that what I understand?
This specific item is simply for Public Works to negotiate a contract for design services. That will not include, with the agreement that we do come forward to the council, any discussion about rates and bonds or any, that is not a part of this specific item.
Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor.
If
I
could-
think we're getting confused here. I think what Alderman Johnson was saying is we'll have the opportunity to look at the RFPs when they come back, which will be about the same time that we're going to discuss the bonding. It's two separate issues. They will not be connected, but I think they'll come back at about the same time. You have the opportunity to see both of them.
That's what my question is. We'll have an opportunity to analyze.
Yes. Mr. Preston.
I was just going to say, he's going to negotiate and bring that agreement back here for approval from the council. So that's one part of your question. Second part is we will bring back information on what our recommendation is as far as bonding, and it's our estimates. You know, as the market fluctuates, there's not going to be a precise number, but it will be an estimate for the council's review.
Okay, very good. Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
That answered my question. Thank you. We'll have another opportunity to look at this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any additional questions, comments? Motion on the floor is for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to items 61, which is bids. Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have 8 bids on the agenda this evening. The first one is for the First Street in East Philadelphia Street Sewer Main Replacement. We received 9 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Shovelhead Excavating Incorporated in an amount of $149,890.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go with Shovelhead Excavation for 149. Is that 880?
149,890.
890. Very good. Discussion on that motion. A discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 62, please.
Our second bid item is Canyon Lake Drive Irrigation Project. We received 3 bids as listed. I want to point out that the alternate bids are actually deducts. There should be bowl eggs behind those parentheses. So those would be deducts. Staff is recommending accepting the base bid from Sprinkler Guys Incorporated in an amount of $158,815.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to accept the base bid only. Is that correct? For $158,815. Okay. Very good. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question here for our finance officer. I guess in a comment, Jim, looking at the funding here is, of course, from parks, government buildings. I would assume that's CIP government buildings. Is that correct?
Jerry here, comment on that. Mayor.
Jerry, do you understand the question? Where's the funding coming from?
I believe it's coming from several sources. Parks and Recreation CIP is paying some. Irrigation out of the regular CIP budget is paying some. And I believe there's some coming from another source, which I don't know where that is.
Mayor, if I might, I guess where I'm going with this here is, I mean, it's coming from CIP for parks, landfill, beautification, and I'm showing government buildings. And I guess my comment and my concern here is if it's for government buildings and it's coming out of CIP is for many years, government buildings has been underfunded out of CIP. And just in the last year, we put more dollars into that. And to take $90,000 out of government buildings to fund an irrigation project, I think it's the wrong place to take that money. So I guess my question again is that coming out of the CIP fund under government buildings?
If I could, Mayor.
Mr. Preston.
If that's what it says, there is in government buildings, there is a line item that's been there for a number of years for irrigation. There's also cemetery/irrigation and then also irrigation. And there are line items which have been there. So yes, it would be coming from government buildings.
I guess my last comment would be is I have a problem with $90,000 coming out of government buildings because we have definite problems as far as funding sources for upkeep of our buildings. And you know, I can certainly support the project, but the dollars where they're coming from, I can't support. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Did you want to make a substitute motion or not?
At this point in time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. This doesn't have a number in on the advertising authority or engineer's estimate. Obviously, we are awarding the base bid with no alternates. What was our estimate on this? What do we have reserved for this particular project?
Mr. Preston.
Engineer's estimate was $348,000.
I'm curious if the engineer's estimate was $300 and some thousand and you have a base bid and all the alternates don't come anywhere near that, why you wouldn't award those? Is there a reason?
Mr. Preston.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Those are deducts. In other words, they would not do certain areas of the irrigation. So as I said before, there should be parentheses around those. Those are deducts. So we are taking the max on that.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. The other, Mr. Preston, I have a question. And that is that we had discussions earlier this week as the fact that there's some of these don't show an advertising or the engineer's estimate. And I would assume that after that discussion, I'm not quite sure why it's not showing up on the link. Could you please make sure that doesn't happen again?
Okay, will do.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is for approval of the base bid of $158,815. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? I think we have a tie vote. Let's take a roll call. Yeah, we got 7.
Oh.
Roll call, please.
Johnson.
Aye.
Adcock. Aye. Hurlbut. Okrepke. Chapman.
Aye.
Wyffenbach.
No.
Olson. Aye. Kroger. Quaker. LaCroy.
Aye.
And we have, Jackie, we have people in the room. Please call the roll again for those that were not in the room. If they're in the room, they have to vote.
You want me to restart this vote?
Restart the vote, please. No.
Peck. Aye. Hurlbut.
Aye.
Okrepke.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Wyffenbach.
No.
Olson. Aye. Kroger. Quaker.
Aye.
LaCroy.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
H2.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We are on to item number 63, I believe the motion is to continue this to Public Works on April 1st, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Preston, is that correct?
Yes, we received the bids as listed there. Staff is recommending we refer this to the April 1st Public Works Committee.
We have a motion and a second to continue item 63 to the Public Works meeting on April 1st. Any discussion on that motion? Item 63, we're going to continue this to April 1. What's that? That is a recommendation of the staff. Okay. Seeing, Tom, your light's on. I assume you didn't want to talk about this one? Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't clear you. Sorry about that. Okay, motion on the floor is continue this to the April 1st Public Works Committee meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 64.
Next item is for the Downtown Alley Reconstruction 2008 projects. We received 3 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from J&J Asphalt Company, amount of $33,427.05.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval of the J&J Asphalt bid of $33,427.05. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 65.
It's the North Maple Avenue and East Disk Drive intersection reconstruction. We received 7 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bids from Heavy Constructors Incorporated, $712,755.34.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the bid from Heavy Contractors for $712,755.34. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to, let's see, that was number 66, please.
Is a low-pressure ultraviolet lamps for Water Reclamation Division. We received 2 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from UV Doctor Lamps in the amount of $61,776.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval from UV Doctor Lamps for $61,776. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 67, please.
Is utility cut Portland cement replacement for water/water reclamation divisions. We received 2 bids as listed. They're Brewer Construction and Inline Concrete, and these are by columns. And these are items with the estimate in the 3rd column, for example, 1,500 square feet for the concrete sidewalk removal. These are estimates. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Brewer Constructions in the amount listed per item.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 68, please.
Item number 68, and for your information, the advertising authority on this is $60,000. 1 new current year model compact 4-wheel drive articulate wheel loader for the Parks Department. Received 2 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Jenner Equipment Company with the trade-in for a net cost of $49,400.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the bid from Jenner, the alternate with the trade for $49,400. Any discussion on that motion? Alderman Tom Johnson.
What is an articulating wheel loader, just for my information?
I could take a shot at it, but Mr. Cole.
I believe it's a big, what do they call it? Big front loader is what it is.
Front end loader?
Yeah, front end loader.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. It's articulating wheels. Okay, any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're on to 68A, and this is under Mayor's items, just recognition. I know that the council had asked that prior to the Pabst Cabin being moved in front of the Journey Museum, that we applied for designation. We did get a letter back from the Department of Tourism and State Development that the State Historic Preservation Office is pleased to inform you that the National Park Service, U.S. Department of Interior, listed the following property on the National Register of Historic Places, and that is the Pap Madison Cabin. So we have our certificate. So that's strictly a Y or FYI for the council. And then we also had a 68B, which was the 2012 meeting. I believe that was Alderman Hurlbut. Is that correct?
Yeah, that
Oh,
is
I'm sorry. Before we go to that, I apologize. Alderman Olson, I think you had a comment about the Pabst Scabin. Is that correct? No? Okay. Okay. Let's go to 68B, which is discussion about the 2012 meeting, and Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. My request is simply that perhaps we could put this off, or set the meeting time for the 2012 meeting on March 31st ahead by, or back by 30 minutes, which would allow Malcolm and I to attend our neighborhood constituent group meeting, and wouldn't be too much delay. I don't know. I only ask because I really would like to be at that meeting.
What time?
So it'd be 7:30 instead of 7.
Second.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
And a second? Okay, the motion on the floor is to move the meeting, and what was the date again? March 31st, 2012 meeting from 7 till 7:30. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Deb, I see your light on. Is there, I don't know why. Okay, we'll clear that. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Mayor, I just asked that maybe we, and I do mean 5 minutes, if we could just take a 5-minute break, because I think the presentation by the Civic Center is important, and if everyone needs to recharge coffee or biological break or what have you, so that everyone can be here for the presentation.
Would you say a biohazard break?
Something of that nature.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll be back in at 6 minutes after 10.
And then do full screen for us so I see what I'm doing, what you're doing. Hit exit. Yeah, but I gotta get it over here. But that would be this going to, see, it's not gonna go over here until I hit laptop, right?
Wait, do you want to get right on your
But you can't. You won't go hit try, but I don't think you can do that till you hit laptop. It's because it won't go there, so now hit exit. So pamper me, hit laptop. See, that's gonna take us, so now, so hit,
Done?
yeah. Okay, so we're good to go. Now we're good to go. Good.
So,
Very
what we'll
good.
do is we'll hit laptop.
Just hit laptop and we're ready to roll. Yep, and then once we hit laptop, then we'll hit right. But then we're gonna switch sides. What's that?
Why isn't the, at least the link there on the agenda?
Because it was only provided to me. And I was saying that you were.
Why wasn't it provided to Jack? The advertising authority is the engineering, it's not on there, or if the funding source is not identified. Right. And we're gonna I'm not gonna chase things down.
Anything in my office?
Yeah, I never sat here. I'm gonna ask if I can sit here next year.
Me too.
So we'll just tell them to enjoy that. Tell them to give it. I don't have time to shut it down. Geez, I don't know if that number.
Did you give him a new name tag?
You know, it used to be that.
New name tag?
They've never had a problem appropriate that long. I know, but it's.
Hey, hey, where's mine?
They're coming.
Thank you, everyone. We're back from our short break. And next on the agenda is presentation from the Civic Center on the expansion. Okay, Brian. Oh, what's this? Oh. Brian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Brian Maliski, General Manager of the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center. Jane Kramer, the Assistant General Manager of the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center, is currently handing out, they call them color boards. They are the bits and pieces, examples of the Civic Center construction process that we've got going on right now. It's been going on for a little bit over a year. And they just give you an idea of what the actual materials at the Civic Center are going to be. We'll have different props that we'll hand out here from time to time, and we'll go over a presentation. At the end of it, if you have any questions, please ask. Go ahead. What you're seeing go through is a fly-through that you'll also see on the website. Just gives you an overview to get you acquainted with where exactly the expansion is. It is located on the east side of the facility, specifically on the southeast side of the facility, closest to the Holiday Inn. It is also closest to the 5th Street parking lot. Let's go to the next slide. This also gives you an idea within the complex itself where it is at. If you look If you look specifically at where we have the current facility, the current arena, you're probably most familiar with. This is the current arena. It's on the north west side of the facility. Where the new complex is going to go, obviously, is down below on the southeast side, so it's almost kitty corner from the current arena. Go ahead. This just gives you an overview of where the construction process began. If you look at the top left side of your screen, that is the first dirt work that was being moved around, and then it slowly goes to the next spot. Contrary to what you may think, the one I'm circling right now is not a racetrack. That is actually the ice rink, and inside of the ice rink through here, this is where the 85-foot by 200-foot piece of ice, the NHL sheet of ice, is located. Down below to the left, bottom left, is the first parts of the construction that were going into place. And then to the bottom right, you can see as the first of the buildings started coming out of the ground there. Where we are at here, we call it getting closer. You can see on the top the two biggest pieces. They're called the super trusses that came in and was shown on the television and also in the paper when they came through. Next to that, you're seeing the walls actually go in place here and also through this area here. To the bottom left, you can see a couple of the cranes that are inside, airlifts that are inside of the Civic Center. That is actually putting in place some of the HVAC systems and also the catwalking system inside. To the bottom right, this is actually on the lower concourse of the Civic Center itself. Over to this side, inside of here, this just outside of this set of doors is the backstage to the theater. What you see over here on this side is the restroom area that is going on the lower west of this part of the facility. Back in this area is some of the concession stands. And then back in here, which you can just barely see, is a loading docks. This facility has a total of 2 dedicated loading docks. It's also got a ramping system that is designed to take equipment, to take large campers, buses, anything like that straight onto the ice floor itself. Here you're getting another view of the rest of the facility. Up here is what we were calling the steel dinosaur for quite a while, and as it goes in place. Down here on this side, you're seeing the lower east concourses actually being poured. Inside of this area right here specifically is restrooms, and then inside of this area is some more concession stands. Up in this area right here is the suites, formerly known as skyboxes. Those are being built through this area all the way through here. This bottom right, if you look into this area here, this is a existing wall that is the upper Rushmore rooms. This whole wall will be blown out completely within the next several months. This area specifically right here is the area that the hockey team is investing an additional $100,000 into the facility to put more club seating in. We started with 129 club seats, and they are investing about $100,000 that they're donating to the city of Rapid City to come up with a total of 260 club seats.
I'm going to talk next a little bit about some different floor plans that we're going to show you. It amazes me out in the public that there are still people that think the only reason that we're building this arena is just for a hockey team. So we will continue to educate the public and show them all the different events that we are going to have in this new facility. What you're looking at right now is our ice rink set up. It will be for basically hockey games and also different ice entertainment shows that we're looking at and dealing with, trying to book right now. In this setup, we'll have just over 5,100 seats. 156 of those seats will be up in the 12 suites on the upper level, and as Brian said earlier, 260 of those seats will be in that club level. The next floor plan is a setup for speakers, comedians, smaller entertainment, things that need smaller stages. As you can see, and you can probably tell, this setup is built up inside the dasher boards. So when we would do this configuration, the dasher boards would still be in place. We would take the glass out. The ice floor would be covered by an ice decking as we passed around a sample of that. And then also we would strategically take out certain dasher boards to allow access to the floor. This setup will have just over 6,600 seats in this. This one is very interesting, and a lot of our shows are very interested in this, especially those shows that take up our whole facility or take up the main floor. They either don't have anywhere to expand in the building or they don't have anywhere on the main floor to expand, such as Black Hills Stock Show and Rodeo, Black Hills Sports Show, the Home Show, and other shows that are looking into expanding on the main floor. Right here, what you'll see is 186 vendor booths, 8x10s. The main floor of this facility have just over 27,000 square feet. So this is of interest to many people to expand and grow their shows that we have right now. The last floor plan I want to show you is our basic concert setup. In this setup, we have probably maximum seating of 7,200 seats. As you know, the number of seats depends on the size of the stage, and with the shows that we have coming up here in April with the Blue Man Group, Newsboys, and also Dierks Bentley, the stages are getting larger and larger. They're having thrusts down the center, they're having ramps up the side. So the size of the stage and the mixing platform in the back will determine the number of seats that we have.
This is just a fly-through of the suites. This is the part of the presentation that I've been doing as we've been selling the suites. The facility was built with a total of 12 suites in it. 10 of those suites were to be sold on long-term basis, and 2 of those suites are to be held back. One specifically rented on an event-by-event basis. The second one was to be used as the city would need or deem fit, and when that was not needed by the city, we would then lease it or rent it on an event-by-event basis. We had a total of 10 of these suites available to sell. It was our goal to have all 10 of these sold 18 months after opening of the facility. Right now, we're about 7 months before opening of the facility, and 9 of the 10 suites are sold. We're down to 1 suite. As of this morning, we're down to 1 suite left to sell, which I think is a feather in our cap that we've been able to go out and get those pre-purchases done so quickly. As this flies through, I might point out a couple little areas here. I've talked about 8-person, 12-person, 14, 16, and 20-person suites. What that means is the number of people that are allowed to sit in this area here is where that comes from. That is not necessarily the total number of people allowed in the suite. That's the number of seats out front of the suite. Other items that you're seeing go through here, this is in this area, you can see where the grate is that secures the suite itself. As the suite moves around, you can see that it comes with closed circuit televisions here that will be tied directly into the video replay system. And it does come with a refrigerator, microwave, bar setup, that kind of thing within this facility. Let's go to the next one. This just gives you some, again, some sight lines to what we were talking about. You can see an indoor bar setup on the suite here. Here you can get a feel for how the people can lounge, those folks who don't want to get down inside of the action. Down here you can see the people who are seated in either the 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, or 20-person suite area. That's where they're dedicated to there. And back in this area, it kind of gives you a feel for the sight lines that the people will have when they're inside of a suite.
RFPs and bids that are going out include items such as dashers and glass, portable floors, concessions equipment, lighting equipment, video equipment. And then RFPs and bids that are currently coming in consist of the video and scoreboard screens, Zambonis, and floor coverings.
Those items, those RFPs that we were just going through, represent the FF&E that the council had instructed the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center to use out of our own fundings. They represent somewhere between $500,000 and $700,000 worth of our operating budget. What you're seeing here is just some of the examples of the upcoming events that we hope to book and are currently booking.
One thing I'd like to mention is, as far as one way that will really benefit the community is by having the Lakota Nations Invitational Tournament all on site, Civic Center property, here in December. This will take away traffic from the local schools such as Rapid City Stevens, Douglas High School, St. Thomas More, who have had to displace their students during that event, not have PE classes just to allow games to happen during that time, because we could only have enough hours in the day to do 8 basketball games. Now we'll be able to do 8 games in each arena for a total of 16 games right on site.
Again, some more examples. One of the things that's been most interesting to me, you'll see here, I've had 3 different national promoters come to me and say, we want to do some motorcycle racing on ice. It's very common. Due to open December 1st, 2008. If you have any questions, we'll certainly answer them for you.
Very good. We do have a light on from Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to first thank Brian for his good work on this, and Jane. I have a couple questions because I too am having to educate skeptical constituents who think the skyboxes are a needless luxury. And I have just a couple quick questions on talking points for that. Number one, how much, can you explain to me just the numbers involved with selling the, I'm trying to think how to put this. How much are we getting combined on these suites? I think I saw it in the paper the other day, and I just forget what the numbers are. I think they were somewhere between $16,000 and $39,000 per suite. And that does not count ticket sales to the events, right?
Go ahead, Brian.
That is correct. The suites started, the 8-person suites started at $21,000. The 12-person suites were $31,000. The 14-persons $35,000. The 16-persons $39,000. And the 20-person party suite is $45,000. That's on a per-year basis. That is money put or spent directly with the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center, the City of Rapid City. That does not include the tickets to any of those events. All the tickets to those events are on top of that. That's in addition to those numbers.
So if Corporation X has a skybox, they have it for every event that comes through that center for available use?
They are, with the suites, they are required to buy the tickets for the hockey events, and they are given first option to buy the tickets for all other events.
Okay, and then let's say that Corporation X doesn't want to use its skybox for a particular event. Do you then act as a broker for something like a timeshare, so to speak?
That is correct. We will charge them an 18% commission, and we will help them sublease that suite.
Okay, and my last question is, you mentioned there may be 12 seats in the suite, but more people can be in there. Is there a limit on that, or is it just as long as they've bought a ticket? In other words, could a company say, we're going to host a small meet and greet reception here, and those who want to come through can come through, as long as they're ticketed for admission?
To some degree, that is correct. The fire marshal has a occupancy code for all of our, all bits and pieces, all rooms within our facility. So we'll abide by the occupancy code. But if, for instance, it's a 12-person suite and the occupancy code is 19 people, as long as they're ticketed with the appropriate ticket, which is a suite ticket, for those 19 that will be allowed within that suite.
Great, thank you.
Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to get a little bit more into the math. We had a lot of people make some comments about box seats and why the council decided to put them in there. I want to get a little bit more total. What is the expected revenue when we lease all the boxes? You have 9 of 10 leased now. What is the expected revenue on the box seats themselves?
Right now, we have 9 of 10 that we'd like to lease on a yearly basis, promised for 3 to 5 year leases. That 9 that we have leased right now represent $271,000 per year solely for these suites themselves. There's a 10th one available right now that's going to be a 12-person suite, which is another $31,000. Once that is leased, there'll be a total of $302,000 per year that is spent with the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center. That does not represent the tickets. There are 2 suites that we are not going to lease on a yearly basis, which will be leased on an event-by-event basis. In speaking with the facilities near us, the Bud Center in Fort Collins, the Kearney Arena in Kearney, Nebraska, Sioux City, and then also with Fargo and Grand Forks, they're worth between $550 and $750 per event.
Okay, anything else, Tom?
Yeah, I'm going to make some points here, Mayor, because I think that some people were extremely critical of the council and our decision-making process. As I understand it, that we have 9 of 10 rented, with the 10th rented, we assume we'll get there, that the annual revenue from the box seats, excluding tickets and excluding concessions, is $302,000.
Yes.
Okay, obviously, when you add tickets to that, it will exceed the $302,000. My understanding is also that the box seats, the folks that are in the box seats and the club seats, generally in facilities, spend more on concessions, and concessions is really how the Civic Center makes their money. I have a comment here, and my comment is directly to the people that said that this won't work. 9 of 10 are sold, number one. Number two, that of all of the things that the city builds, swimming pools, ice arena, the other ice arena that we have, our park system, there's not a single thing we do that pays for itself. And of this Civic Center, this portion, these skyboxes, which cost us additional money to put up, will be the only thing in the entire facility, or what we as a community do, that will pay itself entirely back over a period of time for construction. It will entirely pay back the construction costs, number one. After the construction costs are done, number two, this will become a very good revenue generator for this facility. Now, and people said, you can't do it, it won't happen. I said, we can do it. I believe it will happen. I believe that the information you've given us this evening says that it is working. The council made the correct decision. And it really is a decision about dollars and cents and how do you run your facility. So I want to be very clear that the media at least hopefully gets a chance that, and I believe that the council made the correct decision. Again, I don't see the naysayers in the audience, and I'm challenging those folks to come back and again tell me and the other council people that supported this how stupid we were. Because I think they're wrong, and I think that the dollars and cents will prove that. That's number one, and I think that needs to be said again and again and again. The other thing, Brian, you and I had a discussion when I did an early tour of the facility, and we had this whole discussion of how this project came in over cost. And I wanted you to share with the council, and hopefully you remember the figures that you gave me, but other facilities that are being constructed around the immediate area, I don't know, 5 or 10 state area, you shared with me information on the per square foot costs. And I was I was struck by the numbers that came through. It appeared that every facility that's getting built now is at a higher per square foot cost than ours came in. Do you have any of those figures offhand, Brian?
You know, I don't have, and I apologize, I don't have the per square foot figures. I can tell you the new facility opening this summer in Gillette's going to be about $42 million, plus another $6 million in order to get the equipment in place for it. The Broomfield Center that just opened this last year in Broomfield was a little over $55 million. The Sioux City facility was nearly $40 million.
And without going straight to exactly how much they cost per square foot, wasn't it your finding that our facility came in underneath per square foot on all of those facilities?
Yes.
So that leads me to believe too that, you know, as I heard this whole process, is that the skyboxes were for the richest people and we wouldn't be able to rent them, and that is wrong. Number two, that the facility is extremely expensive and yet we come in less money than the other facilities, which leads me to believe that we didn't do as badly as we maybe beat ourselves up for, number one. And number two, the other accusation is that we built a Taj Mahal, which I don't think that we ended up building a Taj Mahal here. But one of the reasons why I asked the mayor to have you come, and I think it's important that the community knows, that's why I'm spending a little bit of time on this, that you can make good decisions and you can make good decisions and get beat up over them. I believe that the council made a good decision here, and I'm going to keep talking about it because I think in dollars and cents it takes money to run our civic center. And again, this is the only facility that I'm aware of that the community built that pays for the construction in its entirety and generates a lot of revenue. This is a commercial, Malcolm, as you're seeing here. But I think that's important to say. And we need to keep saying it and saying it and saying it. The same people said Cabela's was a bad deal. I won't get too far off my line, but I guess in the end we'll find out really whether the council made some good business decisions for the community. I think this one is panning out. I think by the terms of your lease from 3 to 5 years, guaranteeing this, my bet is within the 5 years we will have paid for the entire construction of the box seats. Simply through the rent. Forget the tickets, forget the concessions. Thank you for your presentation. I may have some more questions or more remarks, but I think, again, I spent some time on that. That is important. The Civic Center Board was correct. I believe the people that were the group of 27 that brought forward the recommendations were correct, and I believe that the council made the correct decision. And I believe of the 8 people that run for mayor, maybe some of them were wrong when they said, you guys are stupid. You did things wrong. I'd like to have them come back here and say, well, maybe our math wasn't as good. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
I just want to know how you load in the theater.
The theater, the backstage theater.
Yes.
The backstage theater, the first thing that was put onto the backstage theater was a new loading dock that currently loads to the side.
Does it come through the old green room?
Excuse me?
Does it come through the old green room?
No. It comes through what used to be an electrical room. There's also another loading dock that's being added. It's going to be opened up with the same, or at the same time this new facility is. So there'll be 2 loading docks devoted to the theater. One that's in operation now, one that'll be in operation in December.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Karen? Let's go to Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. It just dawned on me to ask. We've had 2 high-level staff people here waiting until 10:30 tonight for a presentation that might have been done earlier on the agenda. Could this be put under special items rather than staff items is my question. And other than that, thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Brian and Jane, for your presentation. I just got a couple of simple questions because are we making a bid for a basketball team again?
Yes.
We are?
Yes.
Is it a CBA team or?
No.
Okay.
CBA is pretty much dissolved. It'll be the next level.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from my wife because she's going to kill me if I don't ask this. We're going to make a bid for Elton John again?
Yes.
Thanks.
Already am.
And I got one more question because I know my constituents are going to ask me. All these additions to the Civic Center, is the price of the popcorn going to be increased?
Not yet.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brian and Jane, thank you for coming with the presentation and waiting till this hour. Brian, since I was last over, I have seen this motorcycle racing on ice that I think is popular now. And are there any hopes or plans to do that? And then would there be some ice engineers that we need to hire or maintain? If you could just talk about that just a little bit.
You bet. We've had 3 different groups come to us specifically about motorcycle racing on ice. The ice itself is approximately 1 inch thick that is built for an ice hockey or an ice capades or a Disney on Ice. You build an extra 1 inch to 1.25 inches over the top of that. The cleats or the steel studs within the tires of the motorcycles themselves are anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch thick, or long, I should say. And the ice itself is built that extra inch so that the steel studs do not penetrate into the usable ice for the ice hockey team. So we've got 3 different folks that have bid on that, and that is one of the main reasons we do need an ice engineer in order to run these different events.
Anything else? Don't see any additional lights. I guess this is strictly for information. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will move on. And we're on to item number 70, please. I believe, Deb, I think you read these in. $70.
70 is a notice of appeal from the requirements of the Rapid City Sign Ordinance, Chapter 1528 by Cabela's Retail Incorporated for wall signs, joint identification sign, and ground monument sign, located at 3231 East Mall Drive, and it's to continue till April 7th at the applicant's request.
We have a motion and a second to continue to the April 7th City Council meeting. Discussion on that motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 71, please.
71 is a notice of appeal from the requirements of the Rapid City Sign Ordinance, Chapter 1528 by Rapid City LLC for a joint identification sign in Rapid City, Pennington County, South Dakota, continue till April 7th at the applicant's request.
We have a motion and a second to continue this item also to the April 7th City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Very good. We are on to the public hearings, items 72 through 122. The chair would look for a motion to open the public hearing on items 72 through 122. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. We're in the public comment period, items 72 through 122. We have no speaker request forms. Nope, not at this point. We leave it open. At this point, the chair would look to staff or anyone on the council. Do they expect any items 72 through 108 to be pulled? Okay, very good. Chair would look for a motion to approve items 72 through 108 per the recommendations, actually continue per the recommendations in the agenda. We have a motion and a second to basically continue items 72 through 108 per the recommendations in the packet. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Now the chair would look for a motion to close the public hearing on items 72 through 122.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to the consent public hearing. This is items 109 through 116. Chair would ask if any of the items 109 through 116 need to be pulled. I assume 109? Okay. Any others? Any others? Just out of curiosity, I had a note on 116. Okay. Not published. That's why we're continuing it to April 7th, correct? I had a note on 116 that was not published. That's why we're continuing it to the April 7th meeting? Okay, very good. Did we have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve items 110 through 116. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 109, please. I think, Deb, that's you.
109 is for Laurel A. Hawkins, DBA RA XX Billards, and this will be continued till April 7th, 2008. City Council meeting.
We have a motion and a second to continue this to the April 7th City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Deb, did you have a comment?
Yes.
Okay, Alderman Deb Hadcock.
How are we doing on this application, Marcia, please?
Marcia.
Mr. Meyer was in on Friday. Staff visited with him. He indicated that he was going to contact his engineering firm to prepare the site plan that needs to be submitted. As of Friday, he had not contacted them yet to do that.
Okay, and this is for the parking in order to get their conditional use permit?
Correct.
Thank you, Marcia.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is continue this item to the April 7th City Council meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to the non-consent public hearing items, items 117 through 122. Item 117, please. I believe that's Lloyd.
Thank you. I had a question, Mayor, real quick. On that item 116, it says at the end to continue to April 7th. And
we dealt with 116.
Okay.
That was part of the consent calendar.
Okay.
So we're on to 117.
Deny request from Benjamin Kristen to consider application for fence height exception to allow a 6-foot high fence and front yard setback located at 519 Indiana Street. And request code enforcement to inspect the properties in the neighborhood of 519 Indiana Street for compliant fences. The motion from Public Works is to deny and request code enforcement to inspect properties, area properties. So that'd be the motion on the floor.
Okay, let me make sure I got this. Motion is to deny and also ask the code enforcement to inspect other properties in the neighborhood, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And that was seconded, right?
Yep.
Okay, everyone clear on the motion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 118.
Is approved request by Kedormas and Lee Jackson and Company for Premier Aviation LLC to consider an application for fence height exception to allow 11-foot high fence with barbed wire strand located in Rapid City Regional Airport. Motion be for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Authorize the mayor, 119 is to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign a waiver of right to protest a future assessment for the installation of additional pavement along Patton Street and of sidewalk along Midway Street as they abut block 24 Mahoney addition, less than 25 feet, less the south 8th and 1/2 feet, east 8th and 1/2 feet. And this is located at 1509 Midway. Motion be for approval.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval with, that was approval of the work, correct? Okay, any discussion on that motion? Approval of the work. Waiver of right to protest. Okay, very good. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 120, please.
It's a request by Black Hill Surveying by Dwayne Hussick for a variance to the subdivision regulation to waive the requirement to install sidewalk and reduce the pavement width from 27 feet to 24 feet, and to dedicate additional right-of-way along Midway Street, and a variance to subdivision regulations to waive the requirements to install sidewalk and to reduce the pavement width from 27 feet to 24 feet, and to dedicate additional right-of-way along Patton Street as per Chapter 16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. And this is located at 1509 Midway. Motion would be to deny in part and approve in part with stipulations as per the Planning Commission recommendations.
We have a motion and a second to approve in part, deny in part per the recommendations from the Planning Commission. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Deb, let's stop your light up. Was that from last time? Do you want to? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 121, please.
So request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consultant Engineering for Huey Clemens for variance to subdivision regulations to waive the requirements to install curb, gutter, sidewalk, street light, conduit, water, and sewer in the easement in East Highway 44, and to allow asphalt millings in lieu of asphalt paving, and to reduce the width from 24 feet to 20 feet for private access, and this is located south of East South Dakota Highway 44 and Apple Tree Road. And this motion be denied without prejudice at the applicant's request.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny this without prejudice to the applicant's request. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 122, please.
It's a request by Forefront Design Inc. for Skyline Pines East LLP for variance to subdivision regulations to waive the requirements to install curb, gutter, sidewalk, street light conduit along Mount Rushmore Road as per chapter 16.16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. This is located south of the Tower Road and west of Mount Rushmore Road. And the motion be to acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal of the request.
We have a motion and a second to acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We did move item 123, which is the bill list, until after the executive session. So with that, okay. And I assume that Jason wants a standard language, and we're going to go into executive session as per allowed under state statute SDCL 1-25-2. Is that correct?
Please.
Is that part of the motion? Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're in executive session. Okay, we have a motion and a second to come out of executive session. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're out of executive session. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd ask the council to deny the request from Attorney Scott Sumner to waive the conflict of interest.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to deny Scott Sumner's request to waive the conflict of interest. In discussion on that motion, let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be abstaining from this so it doesn't have any perception of conflict of interest. I'll be abstaining.
Okay. Okay, motion on the floor is to deny the request for a waiver of conflict of interest by Mr. Sumner. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Mayor, I'd suggest that you hand the gavel off to Alderman Chapman on this item. And I would ask that the council authorize the city attorney to enter into a stipulation for dismissal with Colonial Motel and authorize the issuance of a treasurer's check in the amount of $259,344.74, funding source to be the CIP.
It's been moved and seconded to do the recommendation from our city attorney. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you. And you still have your bill list to take up.
Very good. Mr. Preston, bill list, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The total that the council has totals $991,124.83. I would like to add this, the settlement to Banks McCullen and Colonial Motel LLC, an amount of $259,344.74, which makes a new total of $4,250,469.57. And with the motion, I'd like authorization for the Finance Office to issue treasurer's check in an amount of $259,344.74 to Banks McCullen and Colonial Motel LLC. So moved.
We have a motion and a second to approve the bill list of $4,250,469.57 and also authorize the mayor to issue a cashier's check for $259,000.
Treasurer's check.
Treasurer's check. $259. I didn't catch the back side of that.
$259,344.74.
$474. And that is included in the $4,250,000. Yes. Okay.
That's
Everyone
better.
clear on the motion? We have a motion for approval. And any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes.
Move to adjourn. Second.
Okay, motion second adjourn. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you.